My name is Cynthia. I started smoking Newport cigarettes when I was 9 years old. I'm currently 31. I am recently divorced and unable to have children, but I had hoped to adopt a little one. Hell, even a teenager, I don't really care. I just wanted someone to keep me company to end the every night routine of eating a pint of ice cream, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, and watching reruns of sitcoms from the 80s. Hell, if I didn't have to work 4 days a week, I'd never leave my couch. I'm overweight, balding in my early 30s, and looking for something more productive to do with my life. I had been watching the Times Square New Year's Eve event alone in my shitty apartment. Some celebrity had been asking random people in the crowd about their New Year's resolutions. Some wanted a new car, some wanted a better job, some had their priorities fucked up. It was just the usual New Year's garbage I'd been dealing with my whole life. I had always meant to have a list of at least 3 resolutions, but either never thought of anything or never followed through. It was strange, the commercial I saw. It had bright colors and a woman dancing with some cute guy in some sort of studio. The music was louder than the normal television volume, and it immediately grabbed my attention, startling me because of the sudden noise. A woman's voice began speaking over the upbeat music. New year, new you. Tired of wasting your time, your money, and your health on that nasty cigarette habit? Ask your doctor if Fuma Fur is right for you. Fuma Fur? Was this some kind of new method to giving up smoking? I put out my cigarette in the ashtray on the end of the table and perked up a bit. Fuma Fur is 1 simple pill a day for 30 days. It must be prescribed by your doctor. Fuma Fur may help you lose weight, so ask your doctor if Fuma Fur is right for you. It's a win-win. Not only could I finally kick the cigarettes to the curb, but I could potentially lose weight. There was this new diet plan my coworker Ashley had been bragging about. Normally, I don't feed into that sort of hype, but I watched her lose so much weight in only a month that I had asked her for the brochure. I was sure it was still in my purse. Side effects may include abnormal sleep, loss of appetite, sore throat, headache, nausea, skin rash, mild constipation, or new or worsening mood changes. Contact your doctor immediately if you experience... I wasn't listening anymore. I put my ice cream down, opened my laptop, and logged into my doctor's patient portal. I loved this new portal thing because I could log in, check when he's available, and see when appointments have been canceled. It's much easier to get an appointment, and I can't even let him know what the appointment is for. A few years ago, it took 2 weeks to get an appointment. This system made sure I could easily get in whenever I needed to. I had decided on my 3 resolutions. I got an appointment with my doctor to discuss weight loss, quitting smoking, and possibly getting my hair to grow back. In a few minutes, one of the 24-hour answering service people confirmed my appointment for January 2nd at 9 a.m. and let me know that my physician always recommends this over-the-counter cream unless I have a skin condition. She also wrote that if I'm wary of it, wait to ask the doctor. I looked up the stuff and saw amazing results, so I ordered a 6-month supply and had it delivered on the same day as my appointment. I decided that once that ball dropped, I wasn't going to bed. I was going to actually clean my apartment. I had just gotten one of those new, fancy coffee makers with those little pods. I made myself a cup and sipped it as the New Year was celebrated in New York City. I spent the entirety of New Year's Day cleaning my apartment from top to bottom. New year, new me, right? I basically had to go through everything I owned because I had become quite the pack rat, leaving me with limited space. After filling 14 large black garbage bags with things I didn't want to bring into the new year with me, I carried them 3 or 4 at a time to the dumpster in the back of my apartment building. Coffee after coffee, and the entire place was spotless. I even finally got around to unpacking 2 boxes from when I had moved in years ago. I remembered I used to wear significantly smaller clothes, and instead of throwing them all away, I organized my closet. The fat clothes on the left, the new year, new me clothes on the right. It was 5 in the evening, and I was exhausted. Satisfied with my new, clean apartment, I went to bed early, knowing that I would need to be well rested for my appointment the following morning. The doctor seemed to be in a rush. He told me that the brand of hair cream I was using was great and gave me 2 new prescriptions. The first was an appetite suppressant, and the second was my new, exciting wonder drug. I went to the pharmacy and got them both filled immediately. Then I went to the grocery store and actually bought healthy food to cook and not something I would throw in the microwave for 2.5 minutes. I made myself a nice dinner for the first time since I was in my early 20s. I took both the pills and felt fine. All those side effect warnings were bullshit, as usual. I decided a reasonable new bedtime would be 10. I tucked myself in and found it difficult to fall asleep. I thought about maybe getting a feline companion to keep me company. I dropped the idea when I realized I'm compulsive and would immediately become the crazy cat lady. Eventually, I think I fell asleep, but it wasn't like anything I remember. I think it was a dream, but I can't be sure. I was lying on my back, seeing the room around me shrouded in the darkness of the night. I thought I was awake and struggled trying to move. My limbs felt too heavy to even twitch, and I got very nervous. I could have sworn I saw moving shadows out of the corner of my eye. I'm not sure when it happened, but I jolted awake, soaked with sweat and gasping loudly. It was just a dream, I thought, trying to calm myself down. I remembered reading some article online about sleep paralysis. I wondered if that was what I had experienced. I checked the clock to see it was about 20 minutes before my alarm went off. I got dressed up in my favorite red blouse with the buttons and put on a skirt for the first time in as long as I could remember. I was surprised it fit. I even went as far as to put on a pair of uncomfortable heels. But I would just be at my desk. I spent extra time on my hair and makeup, feeling proud of how I looked. New year, new me. Everyone at the office complimented my appearance. Cindy from accounting said I looked like a brand new woman. I was beaming with pride, and on my lunch break, I went outside to smoke, but decided against it. I threw my pack of cigarettes away and went to the little deli across the street to get myself a salad. I went to the break room instead of eating at my desk and got so many kind words and compliments. I bragged about my new attitude and lifestyle choices and received nothing but support. Fast forward a week and a half. I lost 12 pounds, dropped a dress size, and noticed my legs appearing thinner. I was ecstatic. It didn't come without hard work, and it didn't come without side effects. I found myself vomiting every morning, and it had become a ritual. I would only eat 2 small meals a day and a smoothie I would make after work. I didn't notice the hair growth cream working, and I knew it was supposed to take a month, but I didn't want to wait. Everything else about me looked better. I went and got my nails done, and they looked just as fancy as the younger girls in the office. I had saved a large sum of money for a new car, but decided the car could wait. I basically paid $3,000 to get hair put in and then have some kind of electricity thing scheduled once a week for 3 weeks. I was assured that if my hair was not growing normally within those 3 weeks, I would receive a full refund. I had only been to 1 grueling, painful session, but my head definitely felt different. The fake hair looked so real. I was told it would fall out when real hair grew in to replace it. So, it sounds like everything was going great, right? There were problems. Every night, I could only sleep a few hours. The night terrors and sleep paralysis progressively got worse, leading me to upgrade from coffee to espresso and to buy Adderall from a coworker. I'm not gonna lie, I was hyper all the time and full of energy. But my body ached, and I knew I needed more sleep. I brushed it off and decided that if it got worse, I would go back to the doctor. It was day 13 of the Fuma Fur that something very strange happened. I was in a meeting with my coworkers giving a presentation. Everyone in the room loved the advertising idea, and I was praised. I'm always a very bubbly person, always smiling to the point that it takes 20 minutes to cover my laugh lines with makeup in the morning. Then Cindy spoke up. "I like the presentation," she said. "Fiscally, however, this isn't going to work. Normally, I would have smiled and asked her to explain and let me know what we could change. Disagreements happen all the time, but I'm not one to ever really get emotional. I always chuckle, apologize if I've wronged someone, and generally be kind to others just like my mother taught me. No one was ever mean to me, and if they were, I would reply so kindly that they would always be nice after that. My smile drooped into a frown I didn't know I was capable of. "What do you mean?" I said, suddenly feeling like I was holding back tears. "It's a minor adjustment," she clarified. "We may want to start with only 5,000 or 6,000 brochures, test the waters, and—" "No!" I gasped, feeling a tear slide down my cheek. My behavior was not my own, and I was not in control. I literally stomped my feet twice like a child throwing a temper tantrum. "No, no, no! Stop it!" Ashley and Cindy exchanged confused expressions. Then Ashley got up and approached me nervously. "Cynthia, are you all right?" she gasped. "You're not yourself. What's going on?" "Nobody ever appreciates me," I said, raising my voice and shaking my head repeatedly. I compulsively began to slap myself repeatedly in the face. Everyone in the room gasped, and Ashley made a move to grab my wrists. "Oh my gosh," she said, wrapping me in a hug. "Honey, no, we love you. It isn't about you. You're great, perfect even. Please, I think you're having some kind of problem and we should get you checked out." "This isn't okay. I'm worried. We're all worried." I suddenly felt humiliated. I covered my face and sobbed loudly, running out of the room and tripping over my high heels. I fell to the floor and curled into a ball, admitting defeat and screaming loudly. Before I knew it, I was rushed into an ambulance and brought to the local hospital. After evaluation and being given a sedative, I felt like my old self again. I felt humiliated and ridiculous for what had happened, but Ashley stood by my side and insisted I didn't do anything wrong and nobody was judging me. The doctor said I had a nervous breakdown, probably due to all the major life changes I was dealing with. Ashley held my hand and smiled at me. "See? You're all right and I'm so proud of you," Ashley said reassuringly. "The doctor sent me home with a month's worth of sedatives to take when I get nervous. I was told to get refills from my doctor. They weighed me once I calmed down and I couldn't believe it. That day alone, I was down 3 pounds. Ashley decided to drive me home that night, promising to pick me up for work the next morning so I could just take my car home the next day. She stayed with me, we cooked dinner together, and I told her about my 2 sides of my closet. She insisted that my clothes were starting to look way too big on me and basically rushed me into the bedroom to try on my small clothes. I fit into about half of the outfits and we decided to pop open a bottle of this wine I'd gotten for Christmas. I hesitated because I remembered the package on the Fuma Fur saying something about not drinking, but Ashley promised it would be fine. "You're home," she said with a laugh, pouring 2 completely filled wine glasses and handing me one. "Hell, if you lend me that blue dress, I'll stay the night to keep an eye on you. No need to pick you up in the morning, we'll just go together." "You'd really want to?" I asked. No one ever wanted to keep me company. Duh," Ashley said. "Cynthia, you're really a great friend. I hope we can be best friends. You're like the big sister I never got to have." Ashley and I had a wild night together. We stayed up way too late and eventually passed out in the living room with Madonna songs playing on repeat. This was when the night terrors changed dramatically. I wasn't just seeing shadows anymore. They weren't shadows at all. The large window behind the sofa I slept on had black shadow hands reaching out and trying to grab me. The heating system went on automatically with a soft rumble. I was frozen and paralyzed in a dreamlike state once again, unable to move my limbs. I became paranoid. Or at least, I think I was being paranoid. I thought the heating system was talking about hurting me, and when the ice maker in the freezer made that annoying sound it always makes in my mind, it was like the refrigerator was talking to the heating system about raping me and Ashley. I woke up screaming. I startled Ashley awake, and she began forcing me to swallow sedatives while I screamed and cried about the appliances trying to rape us. After about an hour, I calmed down and felt fine again. This had really scared the shit out of Ashley, though. Ashley gave me a phone number for her psychiatrist. She confided in me that she took antidepressants and said I needed to call her. Ashley and I both took the day off work, and she drove me to the appointment. It was considered urgent enough to get me right in. Ashley waited in the car and took a nap, I think. I talked to the psychiatrist and told her about the sedatives. I felt like I was hiding the fact that I was taking diet supplements and Fuma Fur. I don't know why, but I felt ashamed of who I had once been, and I was about halfway through my month-long plan. A couple of incidents were no reason to spoil it. Plus, I couldn't open the can of worms of me buying Adderall. She seemed to think it was stress, prescribed me a stronger sedative, and even gave me a sleep medication. She warned me that it could be very addictive, and that she would only write it for a month to regulate my sleep schedule. Ashley took me to my car, we hugged, and agreed to do brunch the next day. I filled my new prescriptions and realized I spent an awful lot of time in pharmacies these days. I had a lot of time to kill, so I walked down Main Street and looked at all the stores. I wasn't saving for a car anymore, and I thought treating myself would help brighten up the bad week I was having. I bought a lot of new clothes, and for some reason when I tried some of them on, they were too big. I wasn't sure how, but the size I had tried on the night before was too loose, and the woman suggested a size 2. I hadn't been size 2 since college. I bounced up and down happily and brought a dozen bags to my car, ignoring the fact that I had just blown over $500. I decided, new year, new me. I even went to this place down the street Cindy had gotten her adjustments made. I had wrinkles, and with my hair sorted out, I wondered if I could get injections like her. Her face looked so great. They tried to warn me that insurance didn't cover it, it was quite expensive, and there were a lot of risks, blah blah blah. I realized if I played my cards right, I could get this done. I paid more than I bargained for. I was told to lie down and put a cold bag of peas on my face for the 2 hours. I rushed home, didn't bother to put my new clothes away, and listened to music while I waited. The concept of time just didn't make sense to me anymore. What felt like 1 minute had actually been an hour and a half. I just didn't understand time anymore, and I wondered what the drugs could possibly be doing to my brain. I was so close to being the perfect woman. And I even heard that one of the corporate attorneys was planning to ask me to dinner. My face felt numb, and apparently it would stay that way for as long as 2 weeks. I looked in the mirror and was happy enough with the results. New year, new me. Less time putting on makeup in the morning because those lines were gone, baby! I decided to stop the appetite suppressant that night. I figured if I kept eating healthy, I could maintain my new weight. I did, however, take the new sleeping medication and the Fuma Fur. It was alright at first. I had dreams that were strange, but no paralysis. I woke up in the middle of the night, groggy and confused. I think I went to the kitchen and got seltzer water. Next thing I know, I'm back in bed, frozen in my body. This time, things were so much worse. I heard voices telling me to do horrible things, telling me that everyone hated me and that hands were touching me and I could feel them grabbing and pulling my skin off my bones. I shot awake 10 minutes before my alarm and gripped my head. I felt hungover and confused. I immediately took a shit ton of Adderall and drank espresso to try and break me out of this fog I was in. By the time I finished my shower, I was back to normal. Well, sort of. The voices were still there, even though I wasn't dreaming. I heard an occasional whisper that sounded like my name, and I was beginning to think the curling iron was the one doing the talking. I thought about it as I applied makeup to my aching face gently and realized it didn't make sense. The curling iron had to take orders from someone, and I knew it was the refrigerator. Every now and again during my morning routine, I would argue with the voices. Eventually, I realized I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me. That's because they were using remote-controlled alien technology from another universe to control the appliances and get them to speak English to me, but the appliances themselves couldn't understand anything I said. It was a one-sided conversation, basically. Even if the aliens heard me through the microphones they put in my apartment, they wouldn't answer. Otherwise, the CIA would come and I would know too much. The people on that morning news show could hear the voices too, and I chuckled every time one of them stopped talking to listen to the voices. It was like they would forget what they were going to say because they were being interrupted. I realized I was given a gift, and they were only threatening to rape me and make me kill all those microbes to gain control over me. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction, and eventually I learned to tune out the voices. I arrived at work right on time and realized that they had bugged the office, too. The surround sound was playing jazz music and whispering I couldn't understand, and the lights seemed to be too bright. I realized not everyone in the office was smart enough to know what was going on, so I kept my information to myself. I didn't want the CIA to come and get me. Work was a blur. Countless pills were taken every time the voices got to be too much to handle. I even started seeing the shadows and the hands, but the pills made it easier because they kept a smile on my face. No one noticed that I knew the secrets. I got home late and took my Fuma Fur and my sleeping medication. While I waited for the sleep medication to work, I checked my email and turned on some music to drown out the voices. I had over a dozen emails from my doctor's office telling me to call them immediately because there's been an emergency. I picked up my cell phone, which was still on silent from the day at work, and I had 3 missed calls. I couldn't focus on the doctor's words in the voicemails, but I recognized it was his voice and not a secretary. He said something about psychiatric medical records coming in and something about the Fuma Fur. I couldn't understand his garbled speech, so I figured he was reminding me to take it and saying it was good that I went to see a psychiatrist. That had to be the point. Maybe he was praising me. I couldn't focus on the phone over the sound of the voices, and I had to hurry to type out an email to his office thanking them for the Fuma Fur and letting them know I haven't smoked a single cigarette since I began my treatment. I knew I had to follow through the entire 30 days, though, just like the box said. I didn't want to risk getting back into that nasty habit. I had to stop typing mid-sentence and send the email as it was. It was getting difficult to read what I wrote and realize that the message didn't say anything I wanted it to. It was so riddled with typos and weird phrases that I didn't remember what I meant to type. I figured they would understand it because they're doctors and all that, so I sent it as it was. Within minutes, I fell asleep right there on the couch. I was once again frozen, and all the voices were telling me a message. I tried my best to make it out and twitch my fingers, but everything was so confusing. The shadows were no longer just hands and vague figures. I saw shadow men I recognized as the alien leadership in charge. They were telling me the CIA was planning to take me to a place far away so I couldn't tell the world about the real alien government. I began hearing a banging sound coming from the kitchen. It sounded like knocking, and I vaguely heard 2 men screaming for me to open the door. I realized it was the CIA and tried desperately to wake up, but I couldn't budge an inch no matter how hard I tried. I heard a crash, and then I remember hearing voices, but they sounded human. The shadows promised to hide me, and blackness consumed me. I woke up this morning in a hospital bed with my arms strapped down and a needle in my arm. I realized I was being held hostage by the CIA. The voices were making me bite my tongue until it bled, and a loud beeping sound came from the right side of the room. A few people in hospital scrubs ran into the room and began checking my mouth. It was bleeding a lot, and they put some kind of alien device in my mouth like a gag so I couldn't close my teeth. I tried to talk to them, but I slurred in a way I had never heard myself speak before, and the hard, plastic piece was stopping me from closing my mouth. A man in a white coat rushed to my side and began yelling at the nurses. "Give me the morphine, quickly, quickly," he said, securing gloves on his hands and applying some kind of gauze to the side of my mouth. Everything just felt wet, and then everything felt numb. I could still hear the voices and see the shadows, but it was as if none of it made any sense to me. They were trying to stop me from communicating. My eyes darted around the room very quickly. My body was once again impossible to move. But I was awake, and I knew it. I saw a nurse accept something from the doctor with his hands in my mouth, and I think they thought I was asleep. I saw what appeared to be my tongue being put into one of those little plastic cups they use for urine samples. Once the doctor finished whatever he was doing, my eyes were closed, but I could hear him more clearly over the jumble of voices. "Psychosis, clear case," he said to someone in the room. "Possibly much worse, but we'll need to see the MRI results. I need you to contact her next of kin and let them know she is being committed legally, and if they want to fight it in court, so be it." None of the words seemed to make sense to me. Everything was so clear, and yet it sounded like I was underwater. I heard his voice echo, and then I heard a very familiar voice. I think it might have been my doctor's voice, but I can't be sure. "Shit, shit," I heard him say. I'd never heard him swear before. I couldn't get in contact with Cynthia to let her know about the Fuma Fur recall. She sent this bizarre email to my staff, and I called her an ambulance. They kicked in her door, and thank God they did. He sounded quite upset. The doctor who had taken my tongue away let out a strange, almost chuckle. These things happen to the best of us. Permanent brain damage is likely, but we won't know for sure until the results come in. "I feel terrible about this," my doctor said. "I had no idea." "No one did," the man interrupted. "Not our problem. Let the pharmaceutical company get the shit suit out of him by this girl's family. I think her parents are coming from upstate to voluntarily give us the go-ahead, so we'll save some time on the whole legal bullshit." "Her mother is my friend," the man sighed. "What the fuck am I gonna tell her?" The strange man laughed quietly. "I don't get paid enough to give you life advice." The female laughed and sounded like she was talking to the strange doctor. It sounded like they were leaving, because even though they sounded far away before, they sounded even further in the distance, and in moments, I couldn't hear them at all. I just heard some weird gargling noise that left me feeling anxious and a bit confused. "I don't know if you can hear me," my doctor said. "Cynthia, I'm so sorry." "Of course you can't hear me. Get a hold of yourself, Jack." "Right, okay. I'm talking to a vegetable. I need a drink."
I'd locked myself out of our house and it was pouring rain. My parents wouldn't be home for hours. The neighbor, Louis Schaefer, he had passed away 2 weeks before. That was a tough blow. He was a good friend of ours, and the whole family. He used to babysit me when I was a toddler when my parents were working late nights. If it didn't seem like a tornado might come through at any minute, I would have just sucked it up and walked the few miles back to school. The weather was worsening though, and as hail started to fall, I knew I had to get inside. Both the main garage door and the side door were locked tight. I ran around to the back. There was a window. The glass was blacked out. While I initially found that strange, my inquisitiveness dissipated as hail the size of ping-pong balls pelted my head. I took a rock from his garden, felt a pang of preemptive guilt. Then I smashed out the bottom 2 panes. Being careful not to destroy any more than I had to, I pulled the wood out from between the open panes, checked for any remaining glass, and squeezed myself through the hole. The garage was very, very dark. I'd never been in there before. Even with the dim light coming through the broken window, I had to feel along the walls to reach the light switch near the door. Thankfully, the power hadn't gone out. I flipped the switch, and light flickered as the old fluorescent bulb overhead blinked to life. Wind howled, and hail pummeled the roof. I dropped into a folding chair and tried to guess how much trouble I'd get in with my parents for breaking the window. Looking around, I was impressed by how tidy the garage was. Not even a crease stain tarnished the immaculate concrete floor. Everything was organized on shelves and in cabinets with a degree of meticulousness that I hadn't expected of my former neighbor. It always struck me as a bit of a slob, based on my memory of the mess of newspapers and dishes in his kitchen and den. A shelving unit stood in the far corner near the window, holding some things I didn't immediately recognize. I got up and walked over. 4 metal blocks, looked like car batteries, were lined up on the bottom shelf. There was some writing coming from them, winding like ivy up and around the back of the shelf to a series of black cubes. Perched on the higher levels, different wires sprouted from those, reaching up to the top shelf where they all plugged into an old television. Top of the TV bristled with more antenna than I cared to count. With the storm raging and my teenage boredom overtaking my concern for the broken window, I reached up and I turned on the TV. The garage changed. Gone were the gleaming concrete floors and clean surfaces. In their place were remnants of carnage, dried blood, gore, caked chains, and chunks of what I could only assume was rotted flesh. A video camera stood nearby, capturing the scene. I retched as the thick odor of putrefaction assaulted my nostrils. I whirled to face the television. My dead neighbor stood in the middle of the room, methodically mopping up blood. He'd been recording himself. In a panic, I changed the channel. Again, the garage around me shifted. This time, it was filled with 50-gallon drums, all leaking noxious sludge onto the floor. Yellow biohazard symbols were emblazoned on their sides, as if one needed another to stay away from them. I looked at the television. My neighbor was loading a body onto one of the drums, and I gasped. I punched the power button, and the garage returned to normal. The old CRT shut down, its screen dimming as the energy bled off. What's happening? I wondered, trying to catch my breath. Outside, the hail continued to fall. I needed to get out of there. Still, my curiosity was overwhelming my desire to leave. I'd never seen anything like this before. What had Mr. Schaefer been up to? And against my better judgment, I turned the TV on again. The 55-gallon drums returned. I changed the channel. The room filled with the carcasses of dead animals, squirrels, raccoons, birds, even a dog. On screen, Mr. Schaefer was rooting around inside the body of a raccoon, his arms slick with bright blood. A vague sense of recollection stuck with me. When I was little, I remember going by Mr. Schaefer's garage and smelling something awful. I even told my dad about it, and he said a deer probably died nearby. At the time, I didn't give it any further thought, but now I wondered if I'd stumbled upon something without even knowing. The hail was tapering off. It looked lighter outside. I could probably go. Just one more, I thought. Just one more, then I could go back to school, and tonight I'll tell Mom and Dad what I found. With that, I changed the channel. The scene shifted. A tiny boy, maybe 2 years old at the most, was chained to a small chair wearing only a shirt. He was sobbing with an intense sensation of primal horror that began to build inside of me. I forced myself to turn towards the TV. I didn't want to. Everything inside me screamed, pleading me to push that shelf over and destroy it all. But before I could, I told myself not yet. My eyes met the screen. A glance was all I needed. I shrieked and pulled the shelf and all the electronics onto the floor. With a series of sparks and a burst of smoke, everything returned to normal. Everything, that is, except me. It was that one glance that changed me forever. That one glance showing the neighbor kneeling in front of me in that tiny chair. The one glance revealing that same birthmark that I still have on my shoulder. So hot down here. Been hot for the last few days, and the humidity is on the rise. Going outside feels like walking through hot soup. Maybe that's just because I'm from Minnesota and I'm not used to it. Really didn't expect this when I moved to DC. Some days, I think the city isn't for me. When I got off work today, I trudged down the escalator into the DuPont Circle metro station. And hey, you know what sucks? DC Metro. If you want to make friends in DC, just tell the person next to you on public transit that DC Metro sucks. They'll agree. You'll laugh, boom, instant friendship, and you'll feel like you fit in. That's how I pretend to belong anyway. But that doesn't matter, so I'm getting distracted. It's hard to concentrate down here when it feels like I'm suffocating. Point is that I keep going down, down, down. Still that horrible heat. Still that horrible humidity. You'd think that it would get better, but it didn't. It doesn't. I hit my head so hard I saw stars. Of course, there was a general hubbub from the people who saw it. Only one person actually offered to help me back up. Everyone else just stared. The selfish vultures they are. Once my good Samaritan got me back to my feet, he turned and scurried away, and I lost sight of him. Yeah. Hasn't been a good day. I walked down the tunnel. I sat on the bench, waiting for the throbbing in my head to die down, at least to a dull ache. Everyone around me was either sitting on their phone or staring at their feet. I thought about pulling my book out of my backpack, but decided not to bother. The train would be there soon anyway. I waited. And waited. And waited. Must have stuck around for 20 minutes and still no train. Nobody else seemed even mildly concerned by that. Annoyed, I got back on my unsteady feet and went in search of a metro worker. I found one standing near the elevator. As I made my way closer to him, he turned and stared at me. His eyes were icy blue, absolutely enchanting. I'd never seen eyes like that. Hey, do you know when the next train to Branch Avenue is? I asked. He stared at me intently. Gonna be late. There was an accident. You need to go down one more level. I stared at him in confusion. Down. Another level. But this is the lowest level? Without a word, he turned and walked away. I followed him to the other side of the tunnel, and sure enough, there was another set of stairs leading even further down. You can go down and take that line to transfer stations. What line? I asked. Only one line down there, he said. Okay, thanks. As I descended the steps, he just stood there, watching me, until I disappeared from sight. It was even hotter down that next level. I'd never been down this far before, and there were no signs to tell me what line was down there, or when the next train would be coming. There were people down there, again on their phones, reading magazines, generally looking unfazed. Personally, I felt very, very fazed. I waited around for another 20 minutes. No sign of a train. Frustrated, I tried asking a gentleman sitting next to me on the bench. I was sure I wasn't bothering interrupting him because he was just sitting there, staring at nothing. I asked him, "Excuse me, do you know when the train is going to arrive?" Silence. He didn't even look at me, just kept on staring straight ahead. Annoyed, I looked around and saw another metro worker, his back to me as he walked down the tunnel. I leapt to my feet and shuffled down the tunnel to stop him. "Hey, excuse me, can you help me?" He turned around. The same man from the upper level. Instantly, my annoyance spiked. "Hey, what gives? You told me to come down to this level for a train. Where is it? Has there been a delay?" He stared at me for a moment. Man, his eyes really creeped me out. "You're mistaken. Train isn't on this level. It's one level down." I gaped at him. "There's another lower level?" He nodded, and once again, led the way. Right back to the stairs I'd come up. I was certain, absolutely certain, that there had been no more stairs going down, and yet there they were. Right in front of me, like they were waiting for me. Right. Okay. I couldn't think of anything else to say as I climbed down the stairs. The worker once again watched me go. The heat and humidity were worse at this level. Once again, there was no signs, no trains, just people ambling about, waiting for something that I was pretty sure wasn't going to come. I walked around in desperation, becoming increasingly concerned. This was not normal. And then I saw him again. The same damn metro worker from the past 2 levels. I marched right up to him. "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Are you trying to mess with me? Where's the train?" He blinked, slowly, and said, "Sorry, no train on this level. You'll have to... Yeah, I've heard this spiel before. I snarled, turning away from him. I'm going back upstairs. I'll just take a fucking Uber instead. I reached the end of the tunnel, and my heart leapt into my throat. The stairs leading to the upper floors were gone. Instead, there were simply more stairs, leading even further down. Suddenly, the pounding in my head intensified and it became harder to breathe. Like I was saying, said the worker as I turned back to look at him. You're just gonna have to keep going down. He was smiling at me now. A strange, toothy smile that did nothing to warm the blue ice of his eyes. I couldn't stop myself from asking, what's down there? His smile remained fixed in place as he answered, Dunno about that. Guess you're gonna have to find out, aren't you? I'd like to tell you what happened next. I'd like to, but I can't. I can't, because I didn't go any lower. In fact, I haven't left this floor at all. I'm sitting here on a bench, surrounded by people who didn't notice that anything is awry. I don't know what time it is. The clock on my phone hasn't moved a minute from the past hour or hours. I can't send any texts or make any calls. I know what you're thinking. What I've wondered too for the past few hours, but I'm not dead. I can't be because I'm still breathing. I can still feel my heartbeat. My head still hurts. And if I was dead, it wouldn't hurt anymore, right? So I'm typing this. I'm going to post it online. My phone is still connected to the internet. I'm going to post it, and then people will comment, and I'll know I'm not dead. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I've slipped somehow to a place that people aren't supposed to go to, I think. I need help getting out. I can't go back up. I'm not going to keep going down. That's for damn sure. It's so hot in here, and it's getting hotter all the time. I feel like I can't breathe. I think I might throw up. My head hurts so bad, and I'm at the end of my rope. I'm all out of ideas. Except one. There's train tracks down here, and if there's tracks, then they have to lead somewhere, right? I'm sure that if I jumped down onto those tracks and I followed them, nobody would stop me. In fact, I don't think any of these people would notice. Only problem is that electrified third rail. If I touch that, it means I'm dead, doesn't it? Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it isn't a problem at all. I don't know what's going to happen to me or why I'm stuck down here. If worst comes to worst, I'm trying not to think about that. So if you're reading this, here's what you need to know. My name's Rona. I'm not dead. People might have reported me missing. I can't be sure because I don't know how long I've been down here. I've gone down to the DuPont Circle metro station, but I haven't made it out. Please send help. Please tell someone I'm here. And please, don't leave me. Dead leaves crunched underneath, noises of crickets joining in to create a small melody from my walk back. The air, while cools and dry tonight, no wind in the trees. The fenced neighborhood, dark, lonely, quiet, though that being due to the late hour. My feet carry me to the familiar home, the place I know inside and out like the back of my hand. What time is it? The thought sinks into my mind, eyes weighing heavily, specifically from the long days of working. How was it weeks? So much work. All-important work that means life or death to me. Sleep means nothing. Gets in the way. I go on until the point where I might collapse. Never learned my own limit. Only at a few times I give heed to rest and find somewhere safe to sleep wherever I am. A few hours always make do, till the deadline ends. I can finally rest again. I slip past the side gate of the residence in front of me, careful to not push it past 3/4 of the way or I'll make a horrible racket. The last thing I want is noise. A huge noise that would awake any sleeping soul around. That would just be another nuisance. I don't need more eyes on me. Well, not more than the eyes that already have been looming on me since the beginning, watching my every move, staring, stalking. I approached the backside with that feeling of still being watched. I'd rather use this door when no one could spot me. It's safer, less intruding people to catch me from here, yet with hesitation I still have to... No. I need to look around and check the surrounding area. It's me again. Holding my breath, my eyes scanning the darkness for anything. The feeling still looming over me, crushing its weight on me, I turned my attention back to the door. New locks. New code. No one can get into this place now without the knowledge of both. I took a deep breath. Starting to fiddle with the lock, it's jammed quickly on me. It's great. A low growl slips past my lips, focusing more on the stubborn lock. A defect, but a welcoming challenge. My teeth grit, my growing focus distracting me between the paranoia of being watched, this damn stupid lock. I could feel it growing. Those eyes in such an intense stare. The image of a prey being cornered by its predator, just ready to attack and sink into the most vulnerable parts of me. Feeling my heart starting to race, I push it all into one final rough shove. Not short after, I'm greeted by the heavenly click of it giving way to me. I slip inside quickly, shutting the door behind me, making sure to lock it back before moving to the alarm system and placing in the monotonous long code I had learned by heart. I scan the room, then glance back to the door once more. I keep my gaze fixed onto the door, going through a deep string of thoughts. I stand there, my breathing being the only noise heard. My mind goes from trivial things as the door lock, situations leading up to the reason of getting the new locks on the door. And it came to me. All the sounds around the place, the shift of things either being placed into new locations or going missing completely. The sudden broken coffee mug in the middle of the floor, those constant sound, I can hear it clearly. Echoing, taunting me. Was it all in my head? Drip, drip, drip. It was driving me nuts, waking to the sound or coming back inside from a long day, always the same sound. Drip, drip, drip. Even thinking of it now makes my blood boil, my heart pound, fall down in my chest with an agonizing pain. I try to shake myself free of my trance, inhaling quickly. It stopped as soon as the security was changed. I gave a nod to myself in my mind, reaching the conclusion that with a bit of grease, the lock will give way without the frustration. No need to even bother with the turning on the lights. The basement couldn't be too hard to find. I followed my path down the stairs, letting the sounds of my exhausted steps echo loudly on the staircase. A few creaks under my weight, always on the 6th and 10th step. The door moved without any impedance. Icy chill from the room hit me, following with a musty smell reaching my nostrils. I stop. When I was unable to recall where I left off, what I was looking for in here, I grumbled as I made my way around the room slowly, the solitary window giving the room a beautiful but unsettling glow from the moon. The light casts an odd and distorting shadow on the hard, rough stone walls. As I keep searching about, my frustration starts growing over the amount of useless, annoying things gathering dust in this basement. In the midst of it, I caught a sound. The farther into the end of the room I got, the clearer it became. That sound again. I froze in place, feeling my eyes widen, vision fading into limited fields as if in a hypnotic trance. I listened to the rhythmic sound of a soft thud. 1, 2, 3, 4, I whisper under my breath. Counting the second that passed by with each sound, I'm no longer really focused on my actions, making my way closer to the sound as if an invisible force urges me to go there. My body moves in front of a leaky pipe. The water softly drips out of its weak point, clearly cracked open with a rusting over time. I continue to stand there and just stare. With seconds passing, my moods switched from an unsettled calm to an aggravated state. My eyes gazed down onto the leaky pipe with anger. A curse leaves my lips. There's enough at the moment to deal with. I don't have time for this stupid mess. I grab a tool hanging from my belt, lifted it high into the air, ready to fix this pipe. And I hear a scuffling sound. I freeze in place, listening closely. The longer the silence fills the room, the louder the scuffles seem to get, and the more damning each drip of water feels. The noise as if it's going to alert the thing in this location. Drip. 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 I held my breath. The rhythmic drips only seemed to get louder. I could hear the noise getting closer, moving above me. I believed to hear something fumbling outside in the yard, maybe, but it was definitely coming from up above. There was a whisper. A hushed voice speaking out. Nearly muted by the sounds within the building. I hear it. A click. Twist, turn, and with that they opened a door upstairs. They got in. They're in the house now. My thoughts race. Was the person here to steal? No, my thoughts twisted up inside my head, my panic turning into anger. They're here to hurt me. With the tool tightly in my hands, I moved down, moving quietly towards the door. I held my breath, listened to where exactly the person could be located. I could feel my pulse beating against this tool, long, heavy, metallic. The living room. They were there. I started to sneak, avoiding the 10th step. The 6th step that had scared me and alerted me earlier. I gripped the tool in my hands once more, adjusting my grip on it. In that moment, I knew I was about to do this person more harm than they were thinking of doing to me. My teeth gritted together, breathing slowly so they became more audible. My back pressed against the wall. I thought quickly, guessing the possible forms of the attack. I heard them messing with something metallic. Not a gun. Maybe some other weapon like mine, a crowbar, a bat. Doesn't matter. I needed to listen carefully and attack them before they could get to me. My knuckles ached with the pressure so eagerly I wished to peek out, see exactly where they're holding up, size them up, take them down. It's too risky. I could hear my heart pound faster, flooding my head. I waited, with bated breath, a step here, a step there. The person's breathing labored, still unaware that I knew they were here. The sound of metal moving and ringing, their voice was silenced, their steps slowly walking towards me. I felt my eyes widen once again, the tool in a death grip ready to swing with all my might. Tap, tap, tap. Then silent. I could hear them breathing. Words whispering under their breath. This is a man's voice. He's messing with something, speaking to himself. I was about to almost sprint into action, but no, I had to keep the upper hand. Tap, tap, tap. He grew closer and closer. A few more steps and I saw the blur of motion. I quickly swung. A sickening crunch followed as my tool made contact, and in the merest moments I could see the shock in his tired, dull eyes, his greasy hair moving to the tool's groove. No control. No control. I can't stop myself. One hit just isn't enough. I swung again and again. He hit the ground and I couldn't stop. I kept slamming the tool down in a frenzy, the same way someone kills a bug. My eyes stared down at the scrawny man before me, the metal object under his hand, shaking against the tile floor where he fell with him. His greasy dark hair slowly soaked into the liquid, his other hand pale now and bearing the scars of one who labors, reaching out for something in his final moments. My breath heaved, logic and rationality returning back to my mind. I stepped away, the warmth of the liquid slowly cooling on me. I shook my head. I made a quick beeline for the bathroom and I flicked on the light. My tool was set down, the rusting pipe echoing a loud thud on the countertop, liquid dripping off its edge. My cold reflection staring back at me in the mirror. The faucet was turned on quickly, going to work on washing the blood off me, my hands, my upper face, the dark clothes covering my mouth. Doing its job on shielding the rest of my face from the messy situation, I could smell the iron lingering around my nostrils, almost making me sick. I leaned down to close the sink, letting the whole situation sink in deep. My eyes moved up, removing the mess of black hair out of my face. That black, unkempt, greasy hair. I stare at my reflection for what feels like hours. The mixed color of dead eyes, green and ice-cold blue, staring at the prominent scar on my forehead, the one that bared a grim reminder and awful memory. I grasped a towel and wiped away the water and any remains of blood on my skin. It's too bad that my gray shirt held onto stains much easier. Sighing, my fingers thoroughly brought out a trinket from the vest pocket and stared down at the gem hiding safely within it. This trinket seemed to talk to me. Always had. Over and over, I heard it call out to me. Maybe it was just my mind playing a trick on me, but that undeniable whisper remained. I slipped back into deep, empty thoughts once more before I realized that I had been staring at that gem this entire time. Placing the purple gem trinket back into the safety of my pocket, I thought of the possibilities of losing it. I'd die to keep that trinket safe. I turned on my heel from the mirror, and I moved back in the hall once more. The body caught my attention. Its phone, shaking, vibrating against the ground. I moved in close. I stared at it without a single emotion on my face, and without hesitation, I stomped down with my worn boots, breaking it into a million pieces. Drip, drip, drip. Crimson liquid had always covered the tiles. I didn't feel remorse. I no longer had the desire to stay put. After all, at this location, there would always be the feeling of us being watched by those around us, neighborhood of bars. I chuckled, a small tugging at my lips as I moved away from the mess that I had caused. Besides, this isn't my home. Report 1. Much of my life has been dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. That knowledge has guarded this world well. Not a soul doubts that I am blessed with my people's smiles and respect, but though I am called a sage, there are things I do not understand. I believe darkness sleeps in every heart, no matter how pure. Given the chance, the smallest drop can spread and swallow the heart. I witnessed it many times. Darkness. Darkness of the heart. How is it born? How does it come to affect us? As a ruler of this world, I must find the answers. I must find them before the world is lost to those taken by darkness. Report 2. It is my duty to expose what this darkness really is. I shall conduct the following experiments. Extract the darkness from a person's heart. Cultivate darkness in a pure heart. Both suppress and amplify the darkness within. The experiments caused the test subject's heart to collapse, including those of the most stalwart. How fragile our hearts are. My treatment produced no signs of recovery. I confined those who had completely lost their hearts beneath the castle. Sometime later, I went below and was greeted by the strangest sight. Creatures that seemed born of darkness. What are they? Are they truly sentient beings? Could they be the shadows of those who lost their hearts in my experiment? Report 3. The shadows that crawl beneath the castle. Are they the people who lost their hearts? Or incarnations of darkness? Or something entirely beyond my imagination? All my knowledge has proved no answer. One thing I am sure of is that they are entirely devoid of emotion. Perhaps further study will unlock the mysteries of the heart. Fortunately, there is no shortage of test subjects. They are multiplying underground even as I write this report. They still need a name. Those who lack hearts. I will call them the Heartless. Report 4. The Heartless appear in groups and are multiplying rapidly. I've provided them both living and non-living samples. They've responded only to the living. They seem to multiply after absorbing something from the living creatures. Their prey vanishes without a trace. I believe the heartless are taking hearts. They're born from those who've lost their hearts and thrive on hearts seized from others. The hearts taken by the heartless become heartless themselves. Though I lack proof, I am confident in this hypothesis. I must also study their behavior principles, though. They lack emotions. They do seem to have some intelligence. How to communicate with them. It's just occurred to me. Could they be the darkness in people's hearts? Report 5. To study the heartless behavior, I picked one out of the observation. It wiggled its antennae and, as if sensing a target, headed deep into the castle. In the deepest part of the castle, its antennae began vibrating, as if searching for something. And suddenly a strange door appeared. I'd never known of its existence. It had a large keyhole, but didn't seem to be locked. So I opened the door. What I saw on the other side mystified me. What was that powerful mass of energy? That night I observed a great meteor shower in the sky. Could it be related to the door that I had opened? Report 6. A massive core of energy lay beyond the door sought by the Heartless. It may be the ultimate goal of the Heartless, but what is that energy? I have devised a hypothesis based upon my observations of the Heartless. The Heartless feed on others' hearts, and they yearn for that energy core. That thing beyond the door must be a heart, too. The heart of this world. There's no proof, but having felt that immense energy, I am certain that was the heart of the world. The Heartless are trying to take hearts not only from all living creatures, but from the planet itself. But what do they mean to do with the heart of the world? Report 7. I'm studying materials from the meteors that ran down that fateful night. What a find. The material is foreign to our world, it's elastic to the touch, and when two pieces are combined, they bond easily. None of the records even mention such a substance. Was it introduced to this world when I opened the door? I wonder how many other such materials drifted through the atmosphere of this tiny world. I wish I could soar off and find it. Could there be uncharted worlds up there? My curiosity never ceases to grow. But I should stop speaking of such unrealistic dreams. For now, there is no way to venture outside this world. My people and I are all but prisoners of this tiny place. Report 8. There is no doubt that the Heartless are deeply connected to the people's hearts. Further study may unravel both their motivations and the mysteries shrouding the heart. As a start, I have built a device that artificially creates Heartless. By recreating the conditions that spawn the Heartless naturally, I should be able to produce them artificially. This device is the culmination of all of my research thus far. The machine's tests run successfully and created a Heartless. This may be a step towards creating a heart from nothing. The artificially and naturally created Heartless showed nearly identical traits, but the two types remain distinct for the purpose of the experiment. So I'll mark the ones that are created artificially. Report 9. Simply astonishing. Today I had a guest from another world. He's a king, and his vessel is built of the material that compose the meteors. He calls the pieces gummy blocks. It seemed that my opening the door has opened a path to interworlds travel. We talked for countless hours, but one story in particular caught my interest. That of a key called the Keyblade. The Keyblade is said to hold phenomenal power. The legend says its wielder saved the world, while another says that he wrought chaos and ruin upon it. I must know what this Keyblade is. A key opens doors. It must be connected to the door I've opened. Report 10. Just as the people have hearts, so do worlds. The same can be said of stars in the night sky, and deep within each world lies a door to its heart. The heartless desire those hearts. Born out of darkness in people's hearts, they seek to return to a greater heart. Yes, that's it. The heartless come from people's hearts, as does the darkness, and the core of the world's heart, the world of the heartless. I'll pursue the answer there and become all-knowing. My path is set. I shall seek out the wielder of the Keyblade and the princesses. My body is too frail for such a journey, but I must do this. I will cast it off and plunge into the depths of darkness. Report 11. In opening the door that stores a world's heart, the wall around the world is broken down. We see this as a shooting star. Through this, I've been able to understand the reason why the material known as gummy blocks has the ability to allow travel to other worlds. The cause of a world's wall collapsing is the appearance of the heartless. But finding a world's door takes time, and robbing a world of its heart is a similar case. If the door's been closed by the key known as the Keyblade, you probably cannot reach the world's heart again. Before the one with the Keyblade appears in this world, I must take measures to do something. Supposing that there is a close relationship between the princesses and the Keyblade, it seems likely that they will resonate with each other. I have chosen one special girl. I don't know if she possesses a power like that of the princesses, but there is a chance. This is an experiment. She may lead me to the place where the ones holding the key is. I shall send her off to the ocean of other worlds. Report 12. I have transcended to an existence of only the heart. I have come back as a heartless. But there is no sign of such a transformation. My body has surely perished. However, I am different from the other heartless, keeping the memories of before, and I have not taken on the form of a heartless. It is clear there are still many things to be studied. In order to cross over to the dark side, which is not this world, you must go beyond the door of Kingdom Hearts, the place connected to the world's heart, the innermost part connected to the world's heart, the place connecting the world of darkness. I will record the details in another report. There are still so many unknown worlds. The present world, the world of darkness, the world of light, and the world in between. Where does the true paradise lie, I wonder? Report 13. When the heart casts off the flesh, where does the body go? Heart and soul are separate, and the spirit remains in the body. But can we assume that the leftover body and soul perish? Certainly, when the heart changes into a heartless, the body disappears. However, there is only this world's story. In another world, mightn't they change forms like the heartless and exist there? If we take that to be the case, there must be a you other than yourself existing somewhere. An existence neither of darkness nor of light. An in-between existence, cast off by the heart, a mere shell. One who begrudges both the darkness and the light. This mystery cannot be easily resolved. The relationship between the heart and the flesh is a complex one. But since we exist here, they cannot be termed as existent. Therefore, I shall call them the non-existent ones. Secret Report 1. My efforts, these many years have come to fruition, with the world I govern having become a paradise worthy of being called a radiant garden. Nurtured by the pure water that is the source of life, fragrant flowers bloom in abundance, and the people face each day with hopeful smiles. But where there is light, darkness also lurks. As noted in my earlier reports, I must solve the mystery of this darkness of the heart. This paradise depends on it. I shall perform an experiment to probe the depths of a person's heart. One of my own apprentices, Xehanort, has volunteered to be a subject. The young man has served me ever since I nursed him back from death's door some years ago. He had lost all his memories at the time, but later showed remarkable intellect, curiosity, and readily absorbed my teachings, gaining deep wisdom. Any mental immaturity is surely due to his young age. If I explore Xehanort's heart with psychological tests, I may be able to recall the past locked away within. My appearance, even my apprentice, Evan, has also shown great interest in Xehanort's memories. But is he really the right subject? Xehanort does indeed exhibit extraordinary talents, too extraordinary. Perhaps they are even superhuman. Secret Report 2. I have made a grave mistake. My study of the darkness of the heart began with a simple psychological test and quickly snowballed. Spurred on by my youngest apprentice, Yenzo, I constructed a massive laboratory in the basement of my castle. Unbeknownst to me, my 6 apprentices then began collecting a large number of subjects on which to perform dangerous experiments into the darkness of the heart. As soon as I found out, I called my apprentices together and ordered them not only to cease their studies, but to destroy the results of their research thus far. What on earth was happening within the hearts of my 6 beloved apprentices? While pursuing the mystery of the darkness of the heart, could they themselves have strayed into its depths? Yet I remain the most foolish of all, for having begun these experiments. We're not meant to interfere in the depths of another's heart, no matter what our reasons for doing so, and my error plunged me into despair. A visitor from another world soothed my dejected soul. A tiny king named Mickey came wielding a legendary key, the infamous Keyblade, said to bring both chaos and prosperity to the world. He was very knowledgeable on many topics, and we deepened our friendship as we conversed companionably. Upon his advice, I decided to review the data obtained at my basement lab. That's when I discovered the Ansem report. Though they bore my name, the only one I had written was number 0. Apparently, he had gone on to pen numbers 1 through 8 himself. Yes, the first subject in my foolish experiments. Secret Report 3. Chaos affects not only this world, but many other worlds besides. In the Ansem reports, my young apprentice Xehanort had written under my name. I found the records of his hideous experiments, along with his hypothesis about the door that appeared out of the darkness in my basement. All living things have hearts, and all hearts hold darkness deep within. Worlds are no exception. If a world is a being, the heart it holds must be colossal. And the darkness at its core must be monstrous indeed. Did Xehanort pass through that door in an attempt to contact the dark realm? No, not only Xehanort. It appears my other 5 apprentices, believing it was for the sake of research, stared deep into the darkness and were pulled into it. Evan, Yenzo, Bragg, Dylan, Alias, they all ceased to be human. I, too, have had everything taken away from me, banished to a hollow realm of nothingness. What is Xehanort hoping to gain with my pilfered existence? Will my people cease to smile? If the light of hope has been extinguished, I shall henceforth walk with darkness as a friend, here in the realm of nothingness, to which I've been relegated Darkness in the midst of nothingness. Darkness in zero. Thus I shall be known as Diz, discarding the stolen name Ansem, and going in search of revenge. Secret Report 4. The distant days spent in the beautiful paradise are an illusion to me now. How long have I been here? Banished to the realm of nothing. It is only by relying upon my anger and hatred that I've been able to retain my sense of self here, where all existence is nullified. My heart is being overcome with hatred towards my apprentices, possessed by the darkness and with the anger I feel for stupidly allowing myself to be betrayed. Is this darkness eating away at my heart? I cannot continue to idle away my time here. What are Xehanort and the others attempting to do? I must unravel the mystery of these Ansem's reports. Intercept my apprentices and defeat them. That is my mission, the only way to repay the world for my sins. Those beings who lack hearts, the heartless, must be the key. The darkness of the heart made flesh, cursed shadows who not only lack hearts but multiply by seizing hearts from any and all living things. Where have they come from? And where are they going? 3 elements combine to create a life, a heart, a soul, and a body. But what of the soul and body left behind when the heart is lost? When the soul leaves the body, its vessel, life, gives way to death. But what about when the heart leaves? A being does not perish when its heart leaves its body. The heart alone disappears into the darkness. There's little time. If I remain in this realm much longer, I will certainly learn these answers the hard way. My heart is already a captive of the darkness. Secret Report 5. In this realm where all existence has been disintegrated, I have just barely managed to preserve my sense of self by continuing to think and write. It is a place where even time has lost all meaning. Eternity is as but a moment here. I must make haste. Certainly their plans are already underway. The Heartless must be the key to unraveling this mystery. The 6 traitors were operating a laboratory that churned out these cursed shadows. Not only do they generate pure blood Heartless from living hearts, but they then use those Heartless to synthesize artificial versions of the creatures as well. These synthetic Heartless bore insignias and were called emblems. Pure blood or emblem. These Heartless act only to fulfill their instinctive needs. They single-mindedly detect hearts and swarm around them. A human's commands would be ineffective. The Heartless would easily steal the human's heart and use it to increase their own ranks. But what if an even stronger Heartless was giving the orders? If he cast aside his own soul and body and became a Heartless, wouldn't he be able to control the otherwise intractable Heartless? Furthermore, wouldn't he be planning to make use of the creature's instincts? If the heart-seeking Heartless have their sights set on a larger, more powerful heart, their ultimate goal is crystal clear. The largest heart in existence, the heart of the world. This is all conjecture, but it would seem he is utilizing the Heartless in his search for a path leading to the heart of the world. Secret Report 6. My choice to befriend darkness here in the midst of nothingness was a sound one. The moment I stared straight ahead with a calm heart, neither rejecting darkness nor fearing it, I gained a newfound power. A superhuman power. The power of darkness. It is likely Xehanort and the others were enraptured by this power, eventually becoming its prisoners. I do not intend to allow my heart to be devoured by the darkness as they did, of course. With this new power I uncovered a corridor of darkness, the one that connects the realms of nothingness to the outside world. While it's still difficult to come and go as I please, my banishment is now a thing of the past. To deceive Xehanort and my apprentices, I first used my power to change form before returning to the realm of light. As I suspected, Xehanort has become a Heartless. Under my name, he commanded other Heartless in quest to snatch away the hearts of many different worlds. At the center of the heart Xehanort has stolen was Kingdom Hearts, which attracts tremendous darkness to itself and attempts to send any and all matter back into its depths. The other 5 have disappeared. Have they become heartless like Xehanort? Or did they vanish after Xehanort exploited them? I became familiar with an unusual entity while pursuing the truth. It is a soul and body that remains when a being loses its heart, when a Heartless is born. These entities disappear from the realm of light, to be reborn as entirely new beings in a completely different realm. Secret Report 7. While beings being born of darkness and those lacking hearts may find them convenient, it is dangerous for others to make much use of the corridors of darkness. Darkness erodes the heart. In search of a place to proceed with my research and planning away from prying eyes, I found myself in Twilight Town. It is a quiet village, forgotten in the chasm between light and dark. I situated myself in the basement of an abandoned mansion, standing beyond the woods. My underground research resulted in one new discovery after another. When a Heartless is born, the body and soul left behind are reborn into this world as a different being. They possess different intentions than their Heartless brethren, and while it is unclear what these sentient things are after, it would appear they are responsible for much bedlam in this world. My erstwhile friend the king and his subjects, along with a hero wielding the Keyblade, are battling the Heartless even as a new threat approaches. This new threat, they have given themselves a fitting name, I suppose. These non-beings, nobodies. A great number of nobodies have lost human form, as have the Heartless. Yet the nobody, born of someone with a strong heart, retains its shape, with but the faintest visible changes. It appears my betrayers have retained their human form as nobodies, and are gathering more followers in hopes of furthering a new scheme. Organization 13. Formed of 13 nobodies, with my betrayers at its core, has divided into 2. They are said to be carrying out some sort of research. Seeking to uncover the plans of this organization, I have decided to head for where 6 of its members have gathered, towering over the outer limits of the realm between darkness and light. Castle Oblivion. Secret Report 8. It appears that I have been too distracted by the behavior of Xehanort and his cohorts, and the events occurring in their vicinity. My friend's struggle to protect the realm of light from the threat of Heartless is now over, with Xehanort's Heartless, going by the name Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, defeated at last. The other wielder of the Keyblade, this hero, traveled from world to world, sealing up keyholes and laying Heartless low. Meanwhile, the king, who had dived into the realm of darkness, worked with a Keyblade-wielding hero to close the door to Kingdom Hearts from the realms of both darkness and light, thus holding off the threat of tremendous darkness. But there are still a great number of Heartless afoot, and Organization 13 and the Nobodies continue to be active in the shadows. Indeed, the world is still a very dangerous place. We must find a way to do battle with these enemies. Thus I will both make amends and have my revenge. It is for this reason that I infiltrate Castle Oblivion. It consists of 13 floors above and 12 floors below ground, with the content of its white rooms transforming in response to its visitors' memories. Organization 13 was conducting experiments on memory here. The subject in these experiments, a girl named Namine, appeared to possess extremely unusual abilities. Were they attempting to derive something from these powers? Refusing to be distracted by Organization 13, I had returned to my own secret research when a new visitor appeared at the castle today. He was Sora, the Keyblade-wielding hero who had defeated Ansem and his companions. Deep underground, the stench of darkness arose. All the players are coming together, it would seem. Secret Report 9. I should have expected nothing less from a Keyblade-wielding hero. Sora and friends defied the machination of Organization 13 and rescued Namine. Namine was a witch who controlled the memories of others. Most likely these powers were achieved through a special process when she was born. Namine is a nobody, created when a young girl's heart left her body. Yet she has no corresponding heartless. This is because the young girl in this case was a princess. Kairi, a resident of Radiant Garden over which I'd ruled, was one of the 7 princesses that uphold the realm of light. With no darkness in her heart, Kairi produced no heartless, and instead of vanishing, her body remained in the realm of light. In other words, both the nobody named Namine and the heartless, proof of a lost heart, are extremely unstable beings who lack the bodies needed to produce a nobody. Therefore, they also lack Kairi's memories. One reason for this may be that Kairi's heart did not return to the darkness when separated from her body, but rather migrated to another vessel, deep within Sora's heart. That is, Namine. Namine is an alter ego of the Kairi who has directly interfered with Sora's heart. Could this be why Sora and those hearts that are connected to him were able to have their memories controlled? She is a non-being in the truest sense of the word, having not even become a nobody, and with nowhere left to go. She is but the most feeling of shadows. Secret Report 10. Sora went to sleep in order to recover the memories he had lost in Castle Oblivion. It would take quite some time to bring back all the memories he had created in his lifetime, but Organization 13 held sway over Castle Oblivion. Sora would need to be kept someplace more secure. I persuaded Namine to move the slumbering Sora to Twilight Town for safekeeping. Namine. As I had written before, she is a most unusual being. Born of the same process as a nobody, but lacking virtually all the elements of a nobody. Perhaps she continues drawing in hope of capturing that which she lacks, the memories of others, especially Sora. I have arrived at a hypothesis. I believe that Namine was born as a special type of nobody when Sora attacked himself with the Keyblade, causing his and Kairi's heart to leave their bodies simultaneously. Namine emerged as Kairi's nobody, but the body and soul necessary to exist as a nobody belongs to Sora. When a person's heart is stolen, a heartless is born with no sense of self, and the body and soul left behind give rise to a nobody. But what if one willingly releases one's heart from one's body? Sora and Xehanort retained their selfhood even after becoming heartless. Then there are Kairi and Namine. Kairi was exceptional for having no darkness within her heart. Also exceptional was that her heart, once freed, migrated to a new vessel. Sora. The combination of the two theoretically unlikely exceptions may be behind this anomaly. There are matters I must attend to while Sora is sleeping. A new ally has appeared on the scene. Riku. Secret Report 11. I was reunited with an old friend at Castle Oblivion, but was unable to disclose my identity. If he knew the situation, he would likely try to stop me from carrying out my revenge. As much as I would dearly love to converse with him, as in the old days, that is now a hopeless dream. My friend has been fighting in the realm of darkness. Most likely he's found his way through Traverse Town. Like Castle Oblivion, that village also rests in the cleft between light and dark. It consists of the remnants of worlds, whose hearts have been stolen by the heartless. It is where those who have barely escaped the destruction of their worlds eventually find themselves. This realm between is quite unstable, with corridors of darkness appearing from time to time. Whenever a world disappears, some of its inhabitants must arrive here through those corridors. Surely Sora traveled these same corridors of darkness when he first came to Traverse Town. It seems my friend, fighting in the realm of darkness, appeared in Castle Oblivion, through a corridor of darkness constructed by Organization 13. My new ally, Riku, also effected his return via one of these corridors. He swore to me that he would give his all for his best friend Sora. In fact, Sora's memories have been slow to return. Thus I've asked Riku to bring me another Sora, his nobody. Sora is indispensable if I am to achieve my goal. I require the Keyblade-wielding hero to fly through the realm of light and defeat Organization 13. Secret Report 12. Apart from Namine, nobody's retained their memories of their time as humans. But Sora's nobody, Roxas, has lost Sora's memories. This is likely because Sora's time as a Heartless was short, having recovered his heart and returned to his human form soon after leaving behind Roxas, his nobody. It would seem Roxas is as much like Namine. Namine is Kairi's nobody, but came into being via Sora's body and soul. Likewise, Roxas is Sora's nobody, but was left behind because Sora's Heartless regained human form, using Kairi's heart instead of his own. It may be that Sora's memories are slow to return because the half of him that is Roxas is still lacking. I must convert Roxas into data and return him to Sora. As a member of Organization 13, it was exceedingly difficult to bring Roxas in. Having lost to Roxas once, Riku laid everything on the line and used the power of darkness in their second battle, only just managing to bring Roxas back with him. But Organization 13 grows ever nearer. Here, Twilight Town, is where Roxas was reborn as a nobody. This is where Roxas first encountered Organization 13 and joined its ranks. They are bound to search this place thoroughly. First, I shall convert all of Twilight Town into data and construct a world duplicate in Sora's memories. I shall place Roxas within that world to live out his days and regain those memories. There's little time. The organization's schemes must be making steady progress as well. Secret Report 13. Tomorrow, Sora awakens. My long and drawn-out revenge is nearing its end. Xehanort, who took everything away from me, though as a Heartless he is no more. As the leader of Organization 13, his ambition once again is to capture Kingdom Hearts, the most colossal heart of all. His Heartless had attempted to draw out the great darkness of Kingdom Hearts, created from the hearts of all worlds. His nobody, however, is now almost finished gathering human hearts to be assimilated into Kingdom Hearts as well. The fool. Only one mystery remains. How did Xehanort manage to open the door that appeared in the basement of my castle? No. Any theory posited now when everything is nearing completion would be meaningless. Roxas, Ansem, Namine. They all defy logic. Yet, there they are. Single exceptions to the rule. The theories posed by me and by Organization 13 have been blown to pieces by a handful of strong-hearted individuals. Sora, Kairi, Riku. Oh yes, Riku. Though his heart has its weakness, making it prone to darkness, he found support in the hope he discovered beyond suffering. This hope allowed him to stand his ground and turn the darkness in his heart from an enemy into his greatest weapon. When all this is over, it's my fervent hope that he will be able to return with Sora to his island. If I can, I should like to return to Radiant Garden, to look once more upon those beautiful waters, the lovely flowers, and the hopeful smiles of the people. Dear King, my friend, I believe that at some point in time you will come across these, my truthful accounts. How I wish I could have chatted with you again. I was a fool, obsessed with revenge. Forgive me. There it was. A fragment of the universe hurtling through the cosmos, and there I was, gazing up from the comfort of a farmhouse rooftop, built by my father's hands smack dab in the middle of nowhere. In all the years we lived out there on the countryside, not a damn thing remarkable ever happened. This meteor shower was the highlight of my entire life. And that's why, with a bit of wonder glazed over my eyes, I wished on that one shooting star, brighter than the rest. I wished for some excitement. Almost as if in answer to my plea, the meteor took a U-turn and fell from the sky like a falcon diving for its prey. I watched, astonished, as it passed overhead and crashed into the wooded area behind my dad's property. Surprisingly, there was no sound, no explosion, just the rustling of tree leaves as it plummeted through the forest canopy. To make matters more peculiar, I swear I saw a red glow emanating from the crash site, however faint. After the initial shock wore off, I climbed down from the roof and raced into the woods as fast as my scrawny legs would allow. I had a rough idea of where that thing had landed, so I darted in that direction, hoping that I would find a chunk of space rock as a souvenir to show my father. If I was lucky, it'd be a treasure thrilling enough to keep him from getting mad that I went off into the woods by my lonesome. I could only hope. Eventually I came to a small clearing where the moonlight gently caressed the earth, granting me a somewhat clearer picture of the flora and fauna around me. I noticed many small animals frantically scurrying north for no discernible reason. I surmised that the meteor's landing frightened the wildlife nearby, so I decided to head off in the opposite direction. Sure enough, after maybe 10 more minutes of my impromptu hike through the wilderness, I came upon the source of the mysterious glow that I had seen before. There's no meteor. There, sitting in a small depression in the ground, was a metallic pod of sorts, complete with a blinking beacon protruding from its surface like an antenna. The craft itself was spherical, and at least twice my height. I'd never seen anything like it before. I was utterly dumbfounded. Before I could take a closer look, a hatch opened up from its side, startling me back into the woods. With a racing heart, I scuttled behind the nearest tree. I cautiously positioned my head around the trunk and spied on the object with bated breath. I didn't know what to expect. Was it some kind of top-secret military weapon, or perhaps a remote-controlled gadget built by a genius hermit living nearby? Would a little green man step out to greet me, demanding to speak to my leader? No matter the outcome, my eyes were glued to that metallic pod, for better or for worse. A dark violet ooze spilled from the object, forming a large pool at its base. The slimy substance then scaled the pod, coating the exterior from top to bottom. As the slime moved around the sphere, the light above stopped blinking. All at once, the purple liquid was repelled from the craft and back onto the ground below. There, it began taking on a more humanoid shape. As the ooze changed, so too did its color. It became white and fuzzy, not unlike a television static. Appropriately enough, TV and radio dialogue soon filled the forest. This thing was collecting signals from thin air, regurgitating lines from popular programs long since broadcast. At least that's what it appeared to be doing. My mouth agape in awe, I began leaning forward without realizing it. The signals ceased abruptly and I fell, head first into a pile of dead branches, creating a loud crunch. From my new vantage point, I watched the white figure turn in my direction, and then I heard it speak.
Who's there?
Its voice was shaky and unnatural, a low monotone growl coupled with a harsh reverb. Scared for my life, I picked myself up and I ran back home, faster than I'd ever run before. I reclaimed my perch on the roof and carefully surveyed the property. Once I was sure that I hadn't been followed, I hopped through my bedroom window and climbed into bed, hoping that I dreamt the whole thing up. An adventure concocted by my imagination running wild. I wish it were that simple, but wishful thinking rarely plays out in one's favor. The following day, I came downstairs to the familiar aroma of eggs and bacon. My father always cooked up a hearty breakfast on Sundays. The sight I was greeted with upon entering the dining room, however, was anything but familiar. There, sitting at the table across from my father, was a man in a clean-cut suit, wearing a bowler hat and a striped tie. We rarely entertained visitors, so I was more than a little perplexed. "Son, this is Mr. Grovewood. His car broke down a couple miles up the road, so he's going to be staying with us for a few nights, just till he can get things sorted out. How do you do, sport?" I remained silent, perturbed by the man's presence and still shaken from the previous night. "He's paying us a generous sum to stay here, so you best treat him with respect." My dad glared at me in a way that effectively relayed his message, such as I complied. "I'm well, sir. Thank you for asking." The man smiled, albeit awkwardly, and I ran off outside to tend to the farm. I didn't know why, but I suddenly lost my appetite. Something just wasn't adding up. How did this stranger find the farm after his car broke down? We literally were surrounded by forest. Dumb luck, perhaps? Doubtful. I was beginning to feel that his appearance the day after that thing landed in the woods wasn't a mere coincidence, but this wasn't a theory I had enough nerve to explore. After all, I had already convinced myself the previous night's events were nothing more than a bad dream. The man would be gone in a few days either way, so I tried not to dwell on it. The next couple of nights were bizarre. Mr. Hargrove attempted to watch a sitcom with us while eating dinner, but his reactions were less than normal. He seemed confused by the program and would often laugh after he noticed us laughing. This wasn't just any laughter, mind you. It was a loud guffaw of intensely uncomfortable proportions. I was almost relieved when he finally got pulled away by a phone call. One from a business colleague, though I didn't hear a single word exchanged. The following night, I walked downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of milk, only to find Mr. Grovewood chowing down on a raw steak from the freezer. I asked him about it, and all he said was, "It's just a little midnight snack. Trust me, a little color does the body good." Needless to say, I ran back to my room in a hurry without my milk. Last night, however, is when I became truly afraid. Walking past the guest room to the bathroom, I overheard Mr. Grovewood on the phone. This time he most certainly spoke. "Did you receive the information I transmitted?" "Yes. This is the language we must use from here on out. Must avoid suspicion and blend in with the rest." "Oh, it's a lovely place. Rich in minerals, water, and life form. You and the others are going to like it here. But so long as you're ready. There's no going back from here. This will be our new home." "No need. Why waste the material on transports when I can beam you down instantaneously? I have 2 vessels here. Ripe for the taking."
Hesitation set in as I pressed my finger to the doorbell. What if they think I'm ugly? What if I'm not in the mood? Sweat dripped from my armpits and my crotch felt drier than the desert. Why did I agree to this? My mind raced and I was a split second away from going into flight mode when the door opened. I was greeted by a smiling couple no older than 30. "Rebecca?" the gorgeous man asked. I nodded. Holy shit, this guy was hot. "Great. I'm John, and this is my wife, Hera." A slim woman stepped out from behind him. Her face was sunken, but still flawless with no makeup. "I'm much prettier than her." "John and Hera Johnson?" I verified. "We don't use our real names just in case we ran into someone we know. Want to come in, or would you rather do this on the front lawn?" I looked at the landing strip of grass and proceeded inside. My thoughts started to fade as I toured the quaint condo. 3 levels, living, kitchen, bedroom. "And the basement is where we'll be spending the night," John told me as we finished the tour. They both caught on to my nervousness. Hera rubbed my shoulders to ease the tension and the touch barrier was broken. All bets were off now. I acted in the mood more than I really was, which was near nothing. I opened my eyes and could see John was really into this. I stopped Hera before it went any further. I'm sorry, this is my first time. Are there rules that we should go over? John smiled and took my hand. He led me into the basement, and then his wife followed. He pulled back a curtain and revealed a true sex dungeon on steroids. I imagined something like this in the Playboy Mansion or the set of a porno, but not here in my city. There was lavish silk couches, a wall of toys that looked like alien probes, and enough lube to satisfy like a herd of horses, and a minibar to start things off. He poured both of us dry martinis and proceeded with the rules. 1. The safe word is and will always be olive. 2. Always ask before doing. 3. Yes only means yes if you say it twice. Only go in the back room if you're ready. As I read that last rule, John pointed to a locked door in the back of the room. But since this was my first threesome, I wasn't going to ask about it. I assumed it was one of those situations where if you have to ask, you aren't ready. I was fine with the rules. These people seemed prepared and experienced. Was I going to live up to their expectations? Before I could even take the first sip of my drink, Hera kissed me on the lips. Not just a peck, but a full-fledged lip-sucking kiss. I was taken back, but didn't stop her in fear of ruining the night. Once she was done, I downed half my martini. Olive? Oh, where are my manners? Here you go. John dropped 2 olives in my drink. Cute. I thought that was the safe word, though. And aren't we always supposed to ask before doing anything? John's smile dissipated. His eyebrows furrowed, and he looked long and hard at Hera. She cowered like a dog. But then I noticed he wasn't looking at her. He was looking through her. His gaze was set on the back room. I wanted to break the tension quickly before things got out of hand. But I liked it. Smiles were back on, and we all drank plenty. But I still wasn't in the mood. I really thought this was going to be something that I enjoyed. I could sense that they were feeling my wandering thoughts and just came out with it. I don't love my husband anymore. They weren't shocked. No, it was almost the opposite. They were excited. Hera and John looked at me as if they had just found their golden fucking ticket. There's nothing sexier than a married woman in distress, John told me. Hera couldn't stop staring at me. I was finally getting turned on. The way her eyes looked my body up and down, the simple biting of her lower lip, and the way she caressed her own thighs. I lunged at her. Hera was a little surprised, but then gave herself completely to me. I was in her hands now and could have my way with her. I only experimented once with a girl in college, and it was after a few drinks. Many years later, and I was going back to my experimenting days after not feeling loved in a long time. You two have fun. I'll be right back, John said as he left the room. We ripped off each other's tops and explored. Her boobs were much larger than mine, but if I'm going to gloat, I'd say mine were more perfect. Nevertheless, I was enjoying myself, was on the brink of climax already. Just as I was about to push her back to take a break. Where is that coming from? Hera looked at me nervously. She knew exactly where, but so did I. We both looked at the locked door in the back of the room. She shook her head as footsteps came back downstairs. "Don't tell him, or you won't ever leave," she whispered. I put my shirt back on and ran over to the bar. I collected my things and tried to make a quick exit. "Where you off to? The party just started!" John couldn't contain his excitement. I don't think I'm ready for this. Not yet. John could sense something was off. He looked to Hera for verification, and that's when I saw my second confirmation of something is fucked up here for the night. Hera held down her hands, then curled her fists and touched wrists. "Rebecca, what happened while I was upstairs?" John asked calmly. I shook my head. "Nothing. We just kissed a little." "It doesn't sound like nothing. I know when my doll is hiding something. If you don't tell me, I'm going to hurt her." My mouth dropped. I knew this was a bad idea. I knew I didn't have long to think before he would demand an answer, and I sure didn't want to find out what was being hidden in that back room. I acted quickly. My period. I just got my period." "You said it wasn't your time of the month when you answered the ad." It wasn't, but I mean, sometimes it's unpredictable. I'm really sorry." John was defeated and upset. His perfect night quickly came to an end, but I don't think he was going to give up that quickly. He tiptoed to the bar and poured himself a strong one, down the hatch with one gulp. "I need to leave, but we can reschedule." "Show me," he politely said. I cocked my head and my eyes bulged. "John, that's inappropriate," Hera said softly. The look he gave her was one I never wanted to see in my life, and I wouldn't after this night was over. I felt bad for Hera, knowing he's probably put her through some pretty tough shit. The way he looked at her, talked to her, and threatened her was enough to make my blood boil. "I'll just use the bathroom quick, and you can see my stained underwear." I knew he wanted me to drop pants right then and there, but he gave me the liberty of some privacy. Once in the bathroom, I needed to act fast to save us both. I dug around the drawers and shower, no razor blades or anything remotely sharp. I backed up against the wall and hit my head pretty good on the tile. That's when something caught my attention. In the garbage, there was a used razor. I grabbed it and shoved my pants down. I cut a small slit on my thigh and dabbed it on my underwear. This should be convincing enough. A little pain to save my life from God knows what. When I got out of the bathroom, they were both waiting for me behind the bar. Hera looked to be on the verge of tears, and John was as stone-faced as could be. I bellied up to the bar and slid my panties across like illegal drugs. "What you asked for, sir." Man, I can be a smug little bitch. John picked them up and sniffed them. His eyes went in the back of his head. He opened them up and was almost surprised to see the bloodstain. He stared at them for a moment, then slid them back. "Convincing, but you forgot to cover up the cut on your thigh." I was appalled. How could he have known that? He whispered in Hera's ear, and I snuck a quick glance between my legs. Oh, shit! There was a blood stain leaking down my pants. "Listen, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I really do have to leave. You have no right to permit me from leaving," I firmly told him. "You aren't going anywhere." "Fuck you!" I stomped away from the bar and got halfway upstairs before I was ripped back by my hair. I flew down the stairs and landed on my ass. I was then whipped around, and a ball gag was shoved in my mouth. Before I could rip it out, I was handcuffed. Hera just stared at me from behind the bar. We both knew she could be of no help to me. John was far too strong and too controlling. I started to weep, but John showed me no mercy. "You're going to choke on your cries. That gag isn't coming out, so you better stop that right now." I couldn't believe this. Was I going to die here? Who were these people really? John got down on a knee and pulled a small puff of paper from his pocket. He sniffed it from a distance and drew his head back instantly. He then held it up to my nose. I woke up in darkness. It was quiet with the exception of a light dripping. Water, blood. I felt fine, so I assumed it wasn't me bleeding, but was it someone else? As I felt around and listened more, that's when I heard the breathing, deep and rhythmic. Not like my own or anyone's I've heard in my life. The ball gag was still in my mouth, so the most I could muster up was a light squeal as something grabbed my ankle. This thing reached up my thighs, past my chest, and up to my mouth. It pulled on the ball gag and ripped it out of my mouth. I breathed heavily and still couldn't see. Who would talk first? After what felt like a lifetime, I finally mustered up the courage to say, Olive? Silence, but only for a moment. Rebecca? The voice said back. Oh, Jesus, why did you have to scare me like that? Olive laughed. She was always a prankster. I knew this was the right place when they told me the safe word. Did you find a way out yet? I asked. My lifetime friend grabbed my hand and pulled me along a wall. We stopped, and she took my hand and put it up against a large slab of wood. This was the door, all right. So, how do we get out of here? We moan, she told me. He's a nympho, and if he thinks we're going at it, he'll bust down the door and, well, sounds like a plan. We moaned. Oh, we moaned, all right. We gave the performance of a lifetime, complete with most of the dirty words I would say to my husband and, well, a few new ones she taught me. I was never one for dirty play, but this was actually, sincerely, turning me on. It worked like a charm. The door ripped open and he grabbed us both by our hair. That fucker was going to pay for this pain he put us through. As he pulled us to the ground, I heard Hera squeal. She has a phone! Shit. Olive let her phone slip out of her pocket. I tried to grab it, but John stomped on my hand. I think he actually broke it, too. Olive could see the pain in my eyes. She jumped up on John and rammed her thumbs into his eye sockets. He screamed out in pure agony as blood flowed from his face. Hera only watched in horror. She knew she would get hers next. Oh, she may have acted innocent, but she was a major player in this too. As John kept on screaming, I grabbed the phone and checked the battery. Oh shit, it's out. We gotta go now. Olive let go of John as he fell to the floor, still screaming. We grabbed our shit and stopped just before running upstairs. Olive blew a kiss to Hera. Thanks for the fun, darling. And we were on our way. We got outside and into my car. I threw it in drive and we peeled out of there. Ugh, I can't keep this up. I went through 4 houses this time. Olive only laughed and lit a cigarette. She sucked on the filter and blew the smoke out of a cracked window. I promise I'll bring protection next time. You're just lucky I had my cell phone. We both shared a laugh to that, but deep down, I was hoping I'd gotten a little further. The excitement was the only reason I actually did this for her. Not every friendship in life is going to be meaningful or unique, but Olive, she was unique. Might be the only friend I'll ever have that takes fantasy to the absolute limits. It's gotten her in trouble more than a few times, and even though the couples establish rules, safe words, boundaries, she prefers to be locked up and left for dead. That's where I come in. I was the savior, the one called upon to make sure that she actually made it out alive. I've gotten pretty far with some couples, and a few others weren't willing to be a part of her game. I enjoyed the ones that took it to a new level. I've always wondered if some of these people were real sickos and not just playing a game. But there's no real fun in wondering. It's the excitement that gets me. In some ways, I'm part of her fetish, and I've developed my own. Maybe one day, she can rescue me.
Does anyone remember Pokemon Green? Not referring to the Japanese game with Venusaur on the box. I mean the one sold in American stores with Scyther on the front. I seem to be the only one who remembers this game. I wish I never encountered it in the first place. It all started in 1998 when Pokemon made its way to the United States with Pokemon Blue and Red. I was only 7 years old. A friend of mine had let me borrow his copy of Blue, and from that moment forward, I was addicted to the series. When the time came, I was reluctant to return the game to him, but I did. For the next few days, all I could talk about was the game. As a kid, your whole world can revolve around a simple game, like Pokemon. I ended up helping my dad with yard work a few days before my birthday, and I couldn't help but talk his ear off about Pokemon. To my surprise, he said, "Get in the car, we're going to Walmart." Was he really about to purchase me my own copy of Pokemon? I was incredibly excited. This was one of the best days of my life, but well, it would also be one of my worst. We arrived at Walmart, and my father told me that this would be an early birthday gift, and I could only keep it if I behaved myself and did all my chores. I would have done anything to get my hands on a copy of Pokemon. We went inside and made our way to the video game section, and there it was, sprawled across the shelves in a beautiful fashion: Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and Green. I had never heard of Pokemon Green, but the Scyther on the front cover enticed me, and I had to have it. I grabbed a copy, checked out at the register, and went home, as happy as could be. That happiness wouldn't last. When I arrived at my house, I ran upstairs to my room, tore apart the box, and took the cartridge out. The cartridge was very odd. I assumed it would have a normal picture of a normal Scyther on it, just as the box did, but instead the Scyther was offset to the right, almost as if it was battling something that wasn't there, and it was almost glowing. The background was black, and underneath the Pokemon logo it didn't say green version, as I had expected. As unsettled as this had made me feel, I placed the cartridge into my Game Boy. I turned it on and found that instead of viewing an intro, like in Blue, it immediately brought me to a screen with only one choice. Continue. Where was New Game? I wasn't too disappointed. My overwhelming curiosity compelled me to click Continue, and I did. After a few moments, I found my character in what I assumed was my home. I tried to walk outside, but to my dismay, I couldn't exit the house. There were no stairs, and I couldn't interact with any of the objects in the room. The heck? I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach, realizing that my cartridge might be broken, and I may not be able to play this amazing game after all. I shut my Game Boy off, took the cartridge out, blew on it, and put it back in. It brought me to the same screen, with the same option, Continue. I clicked on Continue, and it brought me to the same room. I tried shutting it off and blowing on the cartridge a few more times before I finally became too frustrated and I gave up. What the hell was going on? I told my dad about the game, and he took a look at it. He was brought to the same screen, same room. And he, as well as I, could not escape this room. He saw the torn-up box on the floor, and he sighed. Well, we can't return it now. To my surprise, he then said, I'll have to get you a new one tomorrow. I became incredibly happy once more, and I gave my dad the biggest hug I had ever given him in my life. Though disappointed in the game that I received, I was glad to have the opportunity to get another one. The next day, my father and I proceeded to Walmart. We walked over to the video game section, and a lot of the Pokemon games were gone. Half blue, most of red, and all green had apparently been sold. There weren't even shelves anymore where Pokemon Green had been. Wow, I thought to myself, green must be popular. I wasn't upset. I wasn't intending on purchasing another copy of Green anyhow, seeing as it didn't work so well the last time. This time I grabbed Red, and I had already played Blue and attempted to play Green, so this time I wanted to try something new. We went home, I ran upstairs, I opened the box carefully, in case we had to return this one, and I took the red cartridge out. I placed it in my Game Boy and played. For hours. I played Pokemon Red until the sun came up the next morning. To this day, Red is my favorite of the Pokemon games, and is a great childhood memory. As for Green, I put it in the drawer and I forgot about it until many years later. It was May of 2007, and I received a copy of Pokemon Pearl for the Nintendo DS. My dad, knowing how much I loved this series, bought me it, out of the blue, knowing how happy I'd be. "Thank you so much!" I exclaimed. Before my dad could even respond, I ran next door to my friend Billy's house, and I showed him. "What?" "What?" he said. "My mom just bought me Diamond!" Apparently my dad and Billy's mom had planned this for a week, without the two of us catching on. Without another word, we started to play. We felt like kids again. And after many hours, we stopped playing and decided to relive our childhoods and talk about the original generation of Pokemon. "My favorite will always be Pokemon Red," I stated. "Blue for me," said Billy. I recalled my first time playing Red. And then I remembered something that I hadn't thought about in years. The game that I had played before Red, or at least tried to, Pokemon Green. What about Green?" I asked Billy. "Did you ever play that one?" Billy looked confused. "Very funny." No, I was confused. "What do you mean, very funny?" Billy looked displeased. "You and I both know there's no such thing as Pokemon Green." "Yeah, there is," I said. He now realized I wasn't joking. He was further confused. "What are you talking about?" To my understanding, up until this point, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green came out at the same time, in 1998. It soon became overshadowed by Pokemon Red and Blue, and this is why I hadn't heard much about Green since my younger years. This is what I had thought, at least. According to Billy, the biggest Pokemon expert I know, Pokemon Green doesn't exist, at least not an American one with Scyther on the front. Determined to prove Billy wrong, I invited him over to my house and brought him to my room, where I would show him my copy of Pokemon Green. I dug through the drawers of my desk and eventually turned them upside down in my efforts, only to be let down. Where is it? I distinctly remember putting it in my desk drawer when I was younger. See, Billy said, green doesn't exist. You probably dreamt it up or something. Billy went home, but I kept searching and searching, only to tear my room apart for nothing. Pokemon Green was gone. The following day, I woke up, jumped out of bed, brushed my teeth, and continued downstairs. There I found my father with a large breakfast waiting for me, the usual Sunday. We ate and indulged in some small talk and things about sports, weather. I decided that maybe I should ask my dad about the game, so I did. Oh, that old thing? Oh yeah. I took it from your room soon after I bought you the new one and tried to return it without the package. They tried to lie to me and say they didn't sell that game there, and I gave them a what for and stormed out. They could have just told me they needed the box. Anyway, I think it's on my dresser upstairs. I'll go get it. As my dad made his way to his room, I thought to myself, Billy said the game doesn't exist, and Walmart said that they never carried it in their store. This is beginning to make me feel uneasy. Lo and behold, my father came down the stairs and handed me the game, the one that I'd been searching for. Pokemon Green. I felt an unnerving but overwhelming need to attempt to play the game once more, so I grabbed my Game Boy from my room and proceeded to play. I would have had Billy dissect the game with me, but he's usually at church with his family around this time. I was alone in my efforts. The game started the way it normally did, with the nothing but continue to choose from. I chose so and found my character in the same room, trapped. This time around, being older, I was able to pay attention to more detail. Maybe now I could find a way out. I decided to hit start, see if there's any Pokemon. In my party was a Scyther. Not that surprising. Level 25, and knowing only the moves Strength, Cut, and Flash. Does Scyther even learn all those moves? I ventured to my items, only to find nothing, and to my trainer stats, only to find that I had no money, badges, and 0 hours clocked in, which is impossible. If I hadn't already crossed the threshold of weird, well, I certainly had now. I gave the room a good once-over to see if I could spot anything that I missed as a child, and to my delight, I did. There was a boulder in the room. As a kid, I probably would have thought that it was a chair or something, considering I'd never really played Pokemon before. The boulder was on the right side of the room, against the wall. Naturally, I had a Scyther who could use Strength, and I was able to move it. I walked up to the spot on the wall that the boulder was in, and I hit A. A text block came up and said, dark. Every time I hit A, it would just say dark. What the hell was happening? I thought for a second I remembered that Scyther knew Flash. I used it near the wall where the boulder had been. A path became lit. A surprisingly miraculous exit had been found. I grew less unnerved and more excited as I walked this almost endless hallway that was just big enough for my character to squeeze through. I finally came to a literal light at the end of my tunnel, as if I had exited a cave rather than a house. I walked through, and where did it bring me? I ended up on the side of my house. In what looked to be like Pallet Town. Mind you, my house looked to be of normal size, void of any protruding extrusions on the side where the hallway would have been. This is odd, but I just shrugged and kept playing. There was also no way to get back into the house, seeing as there was no doors. I walked around a bit, found that there was no doors on any of the buildings. It was a ghost town, aside from what looked like Professor Oak standing in front of his lab where the door should have been. I tried talking to him, but a text box came up every time with just ... This made me feel on edge, but I marched on. The only logical thing left to do was head up to Viridian City, so I started towards the grass, but before I could even touch the grass, Professor Oak came up from behind me. What do you think you're doing? It's too dangerous for you and your Pokemon. Battle sequence started. Was I really gonna battle Professor Oak? Sure enough, I was. The sprite of Oak was strange. He was looking down at the ground, and the expression on his face made him look as though he was troubled somehow. Oak sent out a level 5 Squirtle, and I obviously sent out my level 25 Scyther. The Squirtle sprite looked the same as Oak, troubled, looking down. I beat it quickly, and Oak said, "Don't go!" Then he sent out, unsurprisingly, a troubled level 5 Charmander. I beat him quickly as well. Oak restated, "Don't go!" He then sent out none other than a level 25 and equally troubled Bulbasaur. I finished him off, and the battle was over. But not before Oak came on the screen one last time to say, "Don't go." Professor Oak stayed there, near the grass, silent. As I walked off towards Viridian City, once he was out of sight, a text box popped up, probably from Oak, with the words, "I beg of you, do not leave. You won't be able to return." Unmoved by Oak's words, but unnerved by the creepiness of what I was now convinced was a hack game, I pressed on towards Viridian City. Before I could reach my destination, the light illuminating my way disappeared. It became darker and darker until it was just pitch black. Just as it became pitch black, I ran into a wild Pokemon. From this point forward, I will refer to this Pokemon simply as the Invisible. It was level 100 and had no sprite or name. I was unable to fight it because every time I would choose one of Scyther's moves, it would just say, "Scyther is too scared to move." I would run away from the battle and attempt to move, but I would find myself running into Invisible again, before I could even take a step. I was stuck. This happened about another 5 times before I finally decided to stay still and think. What if I use Flash? I had Scyther use Flash, only to find my path to Viridian City dimly lit with a dark green tint. I continued, and the Invisible seemed to have vanished. I finally made it to Viridian City, or at least a dark green, dimly lit version. As soon as I stepped foot into the town, a text box popped up that said, "Viridian City. Stay forever and enjoy the gym." The hell? Stay forever? Enjoy the gym? I tried walking back from where I'd came, but there was an invisible wall. I tried walking forward, only to find another invisible wall at the tip of the town. Oak was right. I could neither return nor leave Viridian City. I calmed down a bit and explored the town, and much like Pallet, the buildings had no doors except for the gym. The only person in town was an old man who teaches you how to catch Pokemon. Avoiding the old man, whom I found creepy even in the normal Pokemon games, I tried the gym. It was locked. I walked around the town, and inevitably, I had to talk to the old man to progress. Reluctantly, I did so. "Hey, so you want to catch Pokemon, do you? You want to become a Pokemon Master? Defeat the powerful trainers of the Pokemon League? Enjoy an endless life of solitude?" I was given the choice, yes or no. Endless life of solitude. I chose no. "Well then, stay forever. And enjoy the gym." The hell? I can't enjoy a locked gym. I spoke to him again and found the same exact script, only this time I chose yes. He said, "Well then, you're well on your way to becoming what you always wanted to be, but first, come with me. I'll introduce you to a true Pokemon Master." He walked me to the gym and stood near the entrance. I tried to speak with him again, but it wouldn't work. I guess he won't be introducing me to anyone. I tried the gym once more. This time I could walk in. I was slightly nervous, but thought to myself, it's only a hack game, made by some mentally unstable game freak worker or something. And only part of me believed that, while the rest of me believed this game was more sinister than that. I hope it wasn't the latter. I found my character inside darkness. The gym was pitch black. I had Scyther use Flash, and the room became dimly lit with a dark green tint, as I expected. The gym was nothing like the complicated maze it was in Red. Here it was just a small room. At the tip of the room was what looked like Giovanni. I walked over to him and hit the A button. He said, "Unfortunately, this is where your Pokemon journey ends. There is nothing beyond this point, and you will remain in this room forever. I'm sorry." What? That's it? Can't be. I walked around the room multiple times and tried leaving, but alas, I could not. I sat there disappointed. As creepy as the game was, I felt such a strong need to finish it. After a few moments, I tried to speak to Giovanni again. This time he simply said, "I'm sorry." Every time I spoke to him, that's all he would say. "I'm sorry." I tried talking to him from the side, but it didn't work. I even tried talking to him from behind, in a space right before the wall at the end of the room. He turned and said, "I'm sorry. I truly am." A battle sequence started. Finally. Productiveness. Giovanni has no choice. Came up the text box as opposed to Giovanni wants to fight. This was weird, but I brushed it off, just like every other weird thing in the game. The battle started. Giovanni sent out, is all the next text box said, and the Pokemon he sent out was none other than the Invisible at level 100. I once again sent out Scyther against what I could only assume was a Pokemon. This time, I could actually fight. Every time the Invisible used a move, it would just use ... and nothing would happen. Every time that I used Strength or Cut, it would miss. Every single time. So the battle was never going to end. Eventually, I decided to use Flash. What happened next was quite unexpected. The Invisible became visible. The Pokemon was none other than a Scyther, but a darker version, much like the dark green tint cast over the town. The sprite was also strange. I can only describe it as sinister, maybe evil-looking, I guess. We fought. My moves didn't miss this time, but they did little damage to a level 100 Scyther. The dark version of my Pokemon now knew the moves of my Pokemon as well, and after using Cut twice, my Pokemon was defeated. Giovanni came on the screen and said once more, "I'm sorry." I was then back in the gym, even though my only Pokemon had fainted. I double-checked, and Scyther did in fact have 0 HP. I walked over to Giovanni and talked to him one last time. This is what he said. "You have to find a way out. He has control over all of us. You will only be another victim. There is a door." His sentence was cut off by an animation. The animation was of Scyther grabbing Giovanni from behind. I stared at the still image for a while. Giovanni looked so frightened that it made me sick to my stomach, and after maybe 3 minutes, the image faded out. Now I was back at the gym. The room was the same, but Giovanni was gone. I tried to leave, but as soon as I reached the door, another animation started. It was the same as the last one, but instead of Giovanni in Scyther's grip, it was my Scyther. And now I was scared. After a few minutes, the animation played out and my Scyther was cut to pieces. Even in the low quality of the animation, it still instilled a great deal of fear into me. The animation ended and skipped into an image of Scyther's head, looking ever so frightened as it lay there in the darkness. And a text box popped up saying nothing more than, "You failed." Here the game froze. Disturbed, I slid the cartridge out of my Game Boy and threw it against the wall. I ran downstairs, poured myself a glass of water. After calming down, I called Billy and had him come over. I needed someone else to experience this. Needless to say, I was freaked out. But Billy came over rather quickly. "What is it? What happened?" I explained everything the best of my ability, and he just laughed. "Yeah, right," he said. I told him that I'd prove it. I ran upstairs, picked up the cartridge off the floor, and ran back downstairs to show it to him. He was unimpressed. "How long did it take you to make this?" I was still a little angry at this point. "I didn't make it! It's real! Play it, you'll see!" I handed him my Game Boy, and he put the cartridge in. He turned it on, but nothing happened. He took the cartridge out, he blew on it, but to no avail, it didn't work anymore. "I must have damaged it when I threw it against the wall." Billy laughed again. "Yeah, you had me going for a second." He then left and went home. While I sat there, still taking in what must have happened just moments before Billy arrived, I thought aloud. Giovanni said there was a door. Maybe I should have looked for it instead of trying to leave. Really, my thoughts were pointless because to this day, I can't get the cartridge to work. I wish I had looked for the door and avoided seeing that animation. In a way, it traumatized me. I haven't been the same since. As you can see, I still have the cartridge. Scanned it using the computer. See a close-up of the photo of what it looks like. It's a bit blurry, but it's the best I can do. The game is real. The game is real. If you're one of those people who think the government is hiding countless secrets from you and constantly covering things up, then you would be absolutely right. I'm one of the many people they hire to clean up their mistakes. I'm not entirely sure why they chose me. There really isn't much special about me, but perhaps that's exactly why they chose me. I'm already a loner. I'm not going to cure cancer or create the next weapon of mass destruction, so I'm easily disposable. They approached me one day after I finished working my shift at a fast food joint. I'm not sure I had much of a choice, but my life was so dull I was ready for any kind of change-up anyway. The men who came to my door didn't even tell me what I would be doing, simply that if I wanted to aid my country, to follow them. I didn't look back once, and as strange as my life has gotten, I still don't regret it. The next year of my life would be grueling. I was put through extreme physical and mental training. I learned about things that I thought only existed in movies. I'm not sure what would happen to me had I failed the training, but I can't imagine they would just let me go back to my normal life. Not once did they mention what I was training for during that year. Not until I graduated. Upon getting the seal of approval from higher-ups, I was brought into a small room, with black suits, and finally informed of what I'd be doing. My new job would be hunting down failed experiments and other oddities that the government had failed to contain. Not all jobs would be the same. Some would be relatively easy, while others next to impossible. Most missions would come with the option of bringing the target back dead or alive. But of course, it'd be preferable to always bring them back alive, for further experimentation. My first assignment would be on the easy side. Codename, the Ice Cream Man. The Ice Cream Man, like most failed experiments, was at one point a human. He still has the appearance of one, your typical ice cream truck driver, but he's essentially a robot, only concerned with doing his job. So what's so special about the Ice Cream Man, then? Well, I'm never told the why of the creatures I hunt, but I always put together my own ideas. The Ice Cream Man's truck is really the special part. The music that comes from the horns work as almost a human magnet. It entrances anyone within hearing distance to approach the truck. Once you approach the truck, well, you buy ice cream. I've heard the ice cream tastes delicious, but of course you'll never know for sure because the ice cream causes anyone who eats it to basically enter a fugue state. For the next 12 hours after consuming the ice cream, you'll carry on your day as you normally do, but you'll remember nothing the next day. I'm sure you can see why this would be a valuable asset to the government. Unfortunately, the scientists put in charge of testing the Ice Cream Man underestimated him a bit. Before they knew it, they had woken up 12 hours later wondering where their test subject is gone. I'm sure I was given this simple assignment as sort of a test. I was given a pair of enhanced noise-blocking earplugs and was sent on my way to the Ice Cream Man's last known location. He wasn't hard to find, I just had to follow the mass of vehicles that had lined up to get their sweet treat. I allowed him to serve everyone in the area. It would make my job of taking him much easier if no one remembered it. After everyone had their ice cream, I lined up myself. He attempted to serve me, but instead, I reached into the truck and injected him with a tranquilizer. He may be a shell of a person now, but he's not immune to good old-fashioned medication. I tied him up and hitched his truck to my vehicle. I dropped him off at the nearest government facility and awaited my next target. As I said, this would be one of the easier assignments. My next wouldn't be quite so simple. Codename, the Rippler. Unlike the Ice Cream Man, the Rippler was still mostly human. He hadn't lost his emotions or become a mindless zombie, and perhaps that was the problem. Through intense experimentation, the Rippler had gained the ability to create an intense, concentrated earthquake. He collapsed the facility he was being stored in. The main concern with the Rippler was his danger to others around him. If he used his ability in a heavily populated area, countless lives could be lost. This was one of the few cases I've been advised not to bring the target back alive. Once again, I feel as though this assignment was a test. Just a different kind of test. The government wanted to see if I would kill for them without hesitation, and it's possible, if I did, then there would truly be no escape for me. This was fine, though. I had no intention of leaving. The Rippler was a bit more difficult to find, mostly because he wasn't trying to attract the attention of everyone around him. But if the government wants you, they'll find you. He had relocated to a small town, changing his name, his face, everything in an attempt to escape. I almost felt bad for the guy. I doubt he'd volunteered himself to be a guinea pig for the government, and now all he wanted was a normal life. Once I found the town he was staying in, I made sure to keep my distance. Didn't want him going nuclear on me. I confirmed he was indeed my target by collecting some DNA samples from his trash. Now all that was left was to take him down. I didn't want to kill him. but I didn't have a lot of options. The scientists who had created him were still unsure of the extent of his powers, and his ability to control them. Had I brought him back alive, there's no telling if the government even has a facility capable of holding him. I did what I thought was best. After he returned home one night, I put a bullet between the Rippler's eyes. It wasn't a good feeling, but I continued to convince myself it was necessary. I dropped his body off and was thanked for my services. It wouldn't get easier from here. My next target, codenamed Ghoul. This one was truly a monster. I'm not sure what the government was trying to create in Ghoul, but I don't think they got what they wanted. Ghoul has enhanced strength and speed, but with one slight problem. He eats humans. Who knows? Maybe that's exactly what the government wanted. As you can imagine, Ghoul found a way to escape. After a while, you'd think these government scientists would get better at containing their experiments, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The mission might not have been so bad, but I was given strict orders that Ghoul was to be brought back alive. All my lethal weapons were stripped and placed with tranquilizers strong enough to bring down a rhino. I put in a request to have a partner for this assignment, but of course I was swiftly declined. Ghoul had taken up residence in a forest. This might not have been so bad if the fact that this forest had an extremely populated hiking trail. There had always been frequent disappearances in the forest, a lot of them chalked up to suicides, but since Ghoul had escaped, that number had amplified significantly. The government did me a solid and got the trail shut down for the weekend, so it would just be me and Ghoul. I wouldn't have to worry about anyone else getting in the way. I've always wanted to go on a hiking date, but this wasn't quite what I had pictured. I set out into the forest looking for signs of his nest. I had made sure not to shower all week in preparation. If he came to me, it makes my job of dragging him back to my vehicle a lot easier. I'm sure he would get hungry eventually. After about an hour of following markings and footprints that I assumed had to belong to Ghoul, I began to come across bones. Human bones. I was getting closer. I followed the path for a few more minutes before I began to hear noises. Looks like my date had finally arrived. I heard tree branches shaking as he drew nearer. After only a few moments, he was standing on a large tree right in front of me. He looked down on me, studying me. He really wasn't that big, maybe 5'6", with an average frame, but looks can be deceiving. His skin was sickly yellow, and his hair had begun to recede, as if he was an old man, but he was clearly much younger. His eyes were pure white, no longer containing anything else. After a brief stare down, he jumped. There was a good 50 feet between us, so I thought that I would have a few seconds to ready myself, but I was wrong. As if he was a video game character, he soared from the tree and landed directly on top of me. I had just enough time to pull out a tranquilizer and shove it into his side. That wasn't enough. Despite the strength of the tranquilizer, he seemed relatively unaffected. He shrugged it off and proceeded to take a chunk of flesh out of my shoulder. I lay helplessly as he began to chew on my flesh. I knew it wouldn't be long before he went back for seconds. I struggled to pull out another tranquilizer and I managed to put another one right before he began to lunge in for another bite. I jammed the second tranquilizer directly into his neck. I felt his teeth began to lock onto my own neck. But before he bit down, he passed out. I let out the biggest sigh of relief of my life and pushed him off me. I placed the special restraints I'd been given for him on, making sure the muzzle I was given for him was extra tight. I wasn't sure how long the tranquilizers would last, but hopefully long enough for me to deliver this monster. Despite missing a chunk of my shoulder, I had escaped alive. This was just one monster that science had created. I could imagine what my future would have in store for me. After delivering Ghoul, I informed the higher-ups that I would need at least a month off. And knowing what they had put me through, they obliged. If anything, they were impressed that I had come back in mostly one piece. Those were a few of my targets. I have many more tales to tell, but that will have to wait. I just received my next assignment, and I have to begin preparations. If I survive, I'll be sure to post more, so see you soon. Hopefully. I'm back, in one piece this time. Before I talk more about my targets, I'm going to address a few concerns from my last post. A lot of you were concerned with my bite that I suffered from the Ghoul. As far as I know, I haven't contracted anything. I was told whatever they did to him shouldn't be contagious. But I made them run tests regardless, all of which came up negative. They gave me a few special pills, but I was told that these were to help speed up the recovery of my shoulder. It wouldn't surprise me if they were hiding something from me. I just hope that if I do start craving human flesh, I would start having enough mental fortitude to pull the trigger one last time. Another thing I wanted to address is who I work for. I only ever referred to my boss as the government, and this is simply because I have no clue what branch it is. It's possible that this isn't the government at all, but I doubt that. It's far too ingrained to not be. It could be the CIA, but I'm not certain. The only questions I ask are the ones that will hopefully keep me alive longer. Now let's talk about a few more of my assignments. After my month-long break or recovery from Ghoul, I was given an easier assignment to ease my way back into things. Codename? Romeo. Romeo was made to be a charmer, and that he was. He was a true Adonis in every sense of the word. Romeo makes the statue of David look ugly in comparison. From what I can tell, he was designed to charm women, foreign diplomats probably, but instead he charms anyone and everyone, which is how he was able to charm his way out of the holding cell. Romeo isn't really a danger to anyone though, except perhaps himself, should he find himself at the hand of an angry spouse. But I'm sure that he could get himself out of that too. Finding Romeo was easy, but the hard part would be extracting him. He was always surrounded by a crowd, almost like a cult. If there was a high-class party, Romeo would be there. He'd never return to his room with less than 10 people following him. I would need a good plan to separate him from his entourage. I decided to attend one of his parties, just so I could get a better scope on the situation. It was crucial that I find any openings he might have. What I didn't expect, though, was for Romeo to approach me. "Good evening, monsieur. I do not believe that we have met. I am Romeo, and you?" "Monsieur? Was that French?" I think I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit. I guess I should have expected this, though. He has quite the ego, after all. It was good to see his charm wasn't working on me. I wasn't entirely sure why, but I think I may have something to do with my disgust at just how perfect he is. "Oh, I'm James? Kinda new here. Nice to meet you, Romeo," I managed to respond. "James, what a fabulous name. But alone at a party, unacceptable. Come with me. My friends and I are about to return to my estate. I will show you the finer parts of the city." Is that a sexual reference? Regardless, this was going to be much better than I expected. I was making direct contact with my target. If I went to his home, perhaps I could just wait until everyone else fell asleep and sneak away with Romeo before anyone knew better. "I don't know, we just met. I wouldn't want to impose on you like that," I said, trying to play hard to get. "No, I insist you must. Samantha, go with my friend James here and guide him to my home. I'll be there shortly. There is someone I must see first." Romeo replied while motioning to one of the women from his group. Samantha did indeed guide me to Romeo's home. I already knew where he lived, of course, but I had to play dumb. Romeo's estate was a true mansion, with aesthetics that would make you think that someone had designed the home in the game The Sims. I was escorted inside. The rest of Romeo's entourage would arrive shortly after. I was offered some scotch that had apparently been aged over 100 years. I'm not much of a drinker, but I accepted it nonetheless. Romeo arrived almost an hour later, fashionably late to his own party. Once he arrived, he immediately approached me. "James, follow me. There's something I must show you," he said to me. I didn't hesitate to follow him. This was my chance to be alone with him. I could tranquilize him and be on my way before anyone knew any better. He led me to a room on the other side of the home. The room was something else. Something I didn't expect. The walls were covered with pictures. Men and women, each one of a different person. I think I even noticed a few of them from his group. "What is this?" I said without thinking. "These are the people that I've conquered, and you are next. Please, remove your clothing," Romeo said as he turned his back to me and began to remove his own clothing. I almost felt compelled to remove my own clothing. His words held such power, but I was able to hold out. Instead, I approached him and sunk the trank into his neck. I made sure to duct tape his mouth. I had heard enough of his words for one night. Romeo was much bigger than me, so it was quite an effort dragging him out of his window and back to my vehicle, but I managed to do it before anyone got suspicious. I assume his friends simply thought that he was taking his time and conquering me. I dropped off Romeo and I made sure to shower extra well that night. My experience with Romeo almost made me miss my date with Ghoul. Almost. My next assignment would be a rather fun one. Codename Kong. What happens when you splice human DNA with gorilla DNA? Well, apparently you get Kong. Personally, I would have preferred to name him Caesar, in reference to Planet of the Apes, but I suppose he's not a gorilla. and I don't get to pick the names anyway. Kong is essentially a smaller version of Bigfoot, and before you ask if Bigfoot exists, I have to say I don't know. I haven't been tasked with hunting him yet. Kong would be a kill task. There's no guarantee the tranks would work, and if they did, for how long? Not to mention he'd killed 2 scientists during his escape, so they weren't too worried about him coming back alive. They just wanted to dissect what was left of him. I was given specific parameters as to avoid the head, if at all possible. They mostly wanted to examine the brain, and that wouldn't be possible if I splattered it all over the ground. Another problem I faced was my experience with long-ranged weapons. It had been a part of my training, of course, and I had gotten through the basics. But that's about it. I had been told most of my missions would be up close and personal anyway, so it wasn't that important. Well, it started to seem important now. Similar to Ghoul, Kong had taken up residence in a forested area, but since his diet didn't consist of human meat, he had chosen a much more secluded area. I don't think Kong really wanted to hurt anyone. He could have lived out his life in these woods, never bothering anyone at all, but that's not what the government wanted. My superiors informed me they had already done overhead sweeps of the area and were able to tell me exactly where the cave he was staying in was located. Of course, they had done the easy part, and I would get to do all the dirty work on the ground. I made my way to a vantage point, overlooking the cave, and set up the sniper rifle that they had supplied me with. Now all I had to do was wait. And after a few hours, Kong finally made his appearance. He walked out of the cave and began to stretch his limbs, the way most of us do after we wake up. I steadied the rifle and aimed the crosshair over where I would assume his heart was. And I pulled the trigger. I missed. I hadn't taken into account that the wind had picked up since I started waiting, and the bullet had strayed to the right of Kong, hitting the rock of the cave. Kong didn't move, though. Instead, he simply turned his gaze towards me with eyes that were all too human. He didn't try to escape. He knew I would come eventually, and if it wasn't me, it'd be someone else. Kong had accepted his fate. I'd killed the Rippler, of course, but that was different. I had done that while he was asleep. I didn't have to look into his eyes before he died. I almost wish Kong had been a monster like Ghoul. That way I wouldn't have to feel bad about putting him down. With a slight hesitation, I reloaded my gun. I took aim, accounting for the wind now, and I fired once again. Bullseye. Kong went down instantly. I made my way over to confirm he was dead, and luckily he was. He wouldn't have to suffer anymore. Kong weighed far too much for me to drag him back on my own. Instead, I set off a flare, and had been given for this moment, and waited for the air team to come and collect him. Sitting next to Kong's lifeless body really made me begin to question my line of work. I'd never felt so disgusted in myself, but I knew there was no way out for me. I'm already in far too deep. Perhaps the government has created another monster in me. And someday, they'll have to put me down too. But for now, I'm still doing their dirty work. If you'll excuse me, writing about Kong has really brought my mood down. I'll be back. I'll be sure to include one of my more exciting assignments next time, but I think I need to lie down for a bit. Until next time. I'm back. And with me, I bring a few more of my assignments. I'm not sure how much time I have, so I'll jump right into it. First up, codename Dahlia. Dahlia's a doll. A ventriloquist doll, to be exact. Despite her simple looks, she's quite dangerous. Probably not in the way that most of you would expect, though. She can't move on her own. Well, she can speak, but that's it. So she won't be running around your home in the middle of the night stabbing people. No, instead, Dahlia has an incredibly strong power of influence. One look in her eyes, and she'll have complete control of you. It's a bit ironic, really, a ventriloquist doll making humans her puppets. In my briefing, I was told that Dahlia is essentially the definition of sadistic. She enjoys making her victims inflict as much pain as possible before eventually disposing of them. I'm not sure if demons are real, but if they are, I'm sure that's what's trapped in that doll. Dahlia is believed to be staying with a family of 4. She'd been taken there by a scientist who had fallen under her control. She'd only been gone about a week, but there's no telling what she could have gotten up to in that time. The scientist who'd taken her had returned to her workplace a day later and attempted to murder her co-workers, but was quickly taken care of. I made my way to the family's home, hoping to be surprised by what I saw. Let's just say I got my wish, but not in the way I'd hoped. I knocked on the front door, and after a few minutes of no response, I turned the handle to find the door was unlocked. I wish I hadn't. The moment I stepped into the home, I was hit with a putrid smell. One that I know means death. The walls were coated in blood. Some of it was dried, some was fresh, and still slowly dripping down. I found the family together in the living room. The mother and 2 children were sitting in a small triangle. They were already dead and rotting. Their stomachs had been cut open with their entrails hanging out. They had been posed in a way to make it look as if they were eating their own organs. In the center of that triangle was the father hanging from the ceiling. He had scratches and cuts all across him, but that was nothing compared to what had happened to his family. Just before I was about to spill my lunch all over the floor, I had heard a voice from the opposite corner of the room. "You're just in time. What do you think of my art? It's a little sloppy, but I'm sure it'll get better in time." "Dahlia?" I questioned. "Aw, have you come to get me already? I was having such a fun time. I'm done here anyway. I guess you can take me back for now. I'll be out again soon." I made my way over to the voice, making sure to keep my head down. I had no intention of ending up like that family. When I got close, I closed my eyes. I managed to pick her up and flip her over, and make my way back to my vehicle. "Let me sit up front. I like to have conversations during my car rides. Plus, you can't get much action from women in this line of work, so it'll be fun for both of us," Dahlia said mockingly. As much as I wanted to chuck her in the back seat and throw a blanket or something over her, I also didn't want her to be out of my line of sight, so I granted her wish. I carefully sat her up front, turning her head towards the window. I'd be lying if I said part of me wasn't curious about her. I wanted to know more about what makes a monster a monster. "You should just take me home with you. Tell your boss I wasn't here. I'm sure we could have lots of fun together." "Yeah, I'm sure you would make a great kindling for a fire," I responded. "You're funny. I like you. I was thinking I'd have someone kill you eventually, but maybe I'll keep you." "Oh, you don't just kill everyone?" "Of course not. I like to let the really bad ones live. It's more fun that way." "What do you mean by that? Are you saying I'm a bad person?" That made me a bit angry. I almost turned to look at Dahlia, but I thought better of it. Was she just trying to provoke me? "You aren't quite on my level yet, but I see potential in you. You didn't even scream when you saw my work. Maybe you even enjoyed seeing it. You may think we're different, but we really aren't." She was partly right. I hadn't reacted when I saw the bodies. I had felt a little sick, but if I had seen that a few months ago, I would have probably passed out. Whether I like it or not, I'm definitely changing. And I don't think it's for the good. "What are you?" I finally asked after a few minutes of silence. "Look into my eyes and I'll tell you." "Nice try. I may be stupid, but I'm not that stupid," I responded, almost bursting out into laughter. "What are you afraid of? Do you think you would see yourself if you looked into my eyes?" "That's enough. One more word, I'm Googling where the nearest wood chipper is." Those were the last words I spoke on our little road trip together. I dropped off Dahlia and informed them of the mess at the house. They said that they would send someone to clean it up. I was hoping they'd give me a break after what I'd seen, but I wouldn't be so lucky. As soon as I turned in Dahlia, they told me they already had a new assignment ready for me. That would be codename Jack. Grandiose name, I know. This is probably the oddest assignment I'd received yet. Jack was, from what I could tell, entirely human. I had no clue why they had tasked me with finding a human. Perhaps he was a runaway scientist, or someone who knew too much, but he certainly wasn't what I had gotten used to hunting. I was told that Jack was incredibly dangerous, though, and that I shouldn't take any risks trying to capture him alive. In other words, they wanted him dead. This only made me more curious as to what secrets that Jack must have held. Jack was constantly on the move, so it wasn't easy to find him, but my training had paid off, and I was eventually able to track him down. I watched him for a few. He didn't seem dangerous to me. Suspicious and cautious, yes, but not dangerous. One night he stepped out of his hotel room to go get food, so I decided to let myself in. Jack and I needed to have a talk. Jack didn't seem too surprised when he returned to his room to find me sitting on the couch. He simply held out his arms. So, they did send someone for me after all. Well, go ahead, do what you have to do. I won't fight it. Sit down, Jack. I just want to talk. Jack raised an eyebrow at this. Curious one, huh? You know what they say about curiosity, right? I rolled my eyes and once again motioned for Jack to sit down. Who are you, Jack? Why did they send me after you? You don't know? I'm you. At least I used to be. They tell us where to go, who to kill, who to bring back alive, and we do it. No questions asked. Couldn't handle it anymore, though, so here I am. And here you are, Jack explained. This took me back for a second. I had known he had had some connection to my agency, but I had never considered that he had been in the same position as me. So there really was no way out. Other than death, that is. I walked across the room, pulled out my gun, and killed Jack. I had the answers I'd come for. Perhaps Dahlia was right. We aren't so different, after all. I returned with Jack's body. I wasn't asked to give my usual debriefing. Instead, I was just given a simple nod and told to go home and wait for my next assignment. I wonder if this was another test. If it had been, I'm sure I passed with flying colors. I understand if you all think less of me for the choices I made, but if it wasn't me, it would have been someone else. This is the life that I'd chosen, or perhaps the life that was chosen for me. Regardless, I can't back down now. I'm simply one discardable person in the whole scheme of things. Don't mistake my actions for blind loyalty, though. I know the people I work for aren't good people. I simply know my place in the world, and the minute I stop being useful, I will end up like Jack. How does the saying go? Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. I'm a cog in a giant machine. And once my cog stops working, I'll be discarded and replaced by another. Despite the fact that I risk death every day that I wake up, I never felt more alive. I no longer have nightmares of those I've killed. I've stopped caring about things like that. If I become too soft, I end up like Jack. I have no intentions of letting that happen. After I disposed of Jack, I was given a week off. It had been a while since I had any time to myself. It was a bit strange. I never had many friends to begin with, and my work had distanced me from the few family members that I kept in touch with. This week off made me realize just how empty my life had become. Was this what they wanted? Regardless, I was at work the minute my week was up, ready for my next assignment, and I got one. Codename Mimic. As her name implies, Mimic is a master of disguise. She has the ability to morph her face into a perfect replica of anyone she chooses. But she's unable to change her body. I imagine she's still a work in progress, and could you imagine what the government would do if they could create a perfect body double of anyone they wanted? Mimic had escaped with a few other experiments, but she was the top priority. It was believed that they had all split up, but I was still warned to be on the lookout in case any of them teamed up. Due to her ability, Mimic would be incredibly difficult to locate. Because of this, several hunters like me were given her as an assignment. If our information was correct, and she had not made it out of the city we live in yet, but if she had, we may never find her. The only way that we'd be able to identify her is by a distinct scar on her left shoulder. The government had set up roadblocks at all the city's exits, while our hunters searched within. 3 other hunters and myself were given a quadrant to search. Mimic had no family, so she would either have to break into somewhere or find an abandoned location to stay. I spent several hours walking the streets of my quadrant, asking strangers if they had seen a suspicious-looking woman, as well as checking out old decrepit homes that hadn't been lived in years. I found nothing, though. That was until I was approached by a slender, young-looking man, probably in his early 20s. "You looking for someone?" the man asked. "Yeah, it's hard to explain. I'm looking for a girl, but I'm not entirely sure what she looks like," I replied. "Aren't we all?" The man chuckled before continuing. "But I may be able to help you. I saw a girl run in an old abandoned building around the corner. She was acting pretty weird, constantly looking over her shoulder. Maybe she's who you're looking for." "Thanks. I have to go check right now," I said, as I pushed past the man, not giving his words a second thought. I quickly made my way to the building and let myself in. To my amazement, Mimic was actually there. But it wasn't quite what I had expected. Mimic was tied to a chair. I knew it was her because her scar was in clear view. No other hunters had contacted me to tell me that they had moved into my area, or that they had found Mimic, so why was she tied up? That's when I remembered who told me that I would find her here. A stranger. Before I could even turn around, I heard his voice. "It's a gift. She's quite important to them, isn't she?" It was a strange young man I had just met, but he wasn't behind me. He was in front of me, near Mimic. How had he gotten in front of me? I had almost sprinted here. "Who are you?" I asked. "That's not important right now. Aren't you gonna thank me?" "Oh, wait, that's not important either. The real reason I'm here is to deliver a message to you," the man said. "A message? From who?" I was perplexed. As I said earlier, I make contact with almost no one. "Don't look so confused, friend. It's from your girlfriend. Have you already forgotten her? Dahlia would be upset to hear that," the man mockingly replied. I immediately cut him off. "Dahlia's not my girlfriend. Dahlia's a demonic doll that I want nothing to do with, unless it involves a large fire." I was almost shouting. The man laughed before responding. "She said you'd say something like that. Regardless, she just wants you to know that she's coming to pick you up soon, and that she really misses you. Now, if you'll excuse me." The man turned and began to walk away. "Where do you think you're going?" I said. I pulled out my tranq gun. I aimed it at him. He didn't respond. Nor did he stop walking. I fired. My aim was dead on. Well, it would have been, but the dart passed right through the man as if he wasn't there. He continued walking straight up to a wall and proceeded to walk through. What the hell just happened? A man appeared out of nowhere and leads me to Mimic, and then he tells me that Dahlia is coming for me. To top it off, there's obviously something going on with the man too, seeing as how he knew Dahlia, but also the fact that objects pass directly through his body. Was he under her control? I don't know what's going on at all, but I still have a job to do, and my target was right in front of me. I let the other hunters know that I had found the target and that I was taking her back. That's what I did. I brought Mimic back to my bosses. I was almost expecting some sort of praise, but I knew that would be unlikely despite her value. I'd be surprised once again when I made it back to the holding facility, though. The whole place was in complete lockdown. Well, whatever was able to be locked down. Half the building had been blown off. The facility was located outside of town in a secluded area for obvious reasons. So I knew no innocent people had died, but I did see the corpses of many scientists and guards strewn around the area. I know some of them had families, but these people weren't exactly angels. I managed to find one of my superiors who was able to briefly fill me in on the situation. While our forces had been thinned looking for Mimic, a group had attacked the facility. It was obvious they were looking for a particular experiment, but it's unsure exactly who they were after at this point. Around 20 of the 50 experiments held in this facility had escaped. I tried asking which of the experiments escaped, but I was told that was confidential. He simply told me to leave Mimic with them and go home and wait for them to sort this out. I'd be very busy soon. Part of me already knows at least one of the experiments who escaped. Was she the target? I think it's a big possibility. I was already told she was coming for me. I'm not sure what's about to happen, but it can't be good. It's been a few days since the attack on the facility. I was temporarily sent home while the government sorted out the mess. With half the building blown off, it wouldn't do much good to start hunting down the experiments before we had a place to store them. We'd find them eventually anyway. I was able to sleep for about 4 hours before my phone rang. It was time to hunt down the escapees. Myself and 3 other hunters that had helped look for Mimic were all called in. We were given a short list of experiments that had escaped. To my dismay, Dahlia was in fact on the list. She couldn't move on her own, so it was clear that she had another one of the experiments. Which one, though, I had no clue. I tried flipping through the pages to see if the man that I had seen with Mimic was on the list, but he wasn't. We were able to find about half of the 20 escapees within the first day. Some of the experiments just stand out a bit too much, and with no one else to help them on the outside, they were just sitting ducks. There were still 11 at large, though, Dahlia, of course, among them. I kept hoping every time we found a new lead, they would be the one carrying Dahlia. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. After doing a quick sweep of the nearby city with no new results, we were all sent home to rest. The government would go through cameras and contact us if they found anything. They were also calling in reinforcements after the attack, trying to find out who orchestrated it. There was absolutely no way I was going home with a killer doll stalking me, though. Instead, I made sure that I wasn't being followed. I parked my car on a random street and found a small motel. It was a crappy rundown place, but that oddly made me feel safer. I slept with my lethal gun in hand and my tranq gun nearby. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep much, but it would only be worse for me if Dahlia did come, and I was too exhausted to fight back. The night went by with no incidents, though. I was called earlier in the morning once again. It turned out 2 experiments had been spotted together. They had stolen a car and were en route to leave the city. The people back at the facility would slow them down as much as possible with stoplights. They wanted me and another one of the hunters to meet up and follow them. They could possibly lead us to more of the escaped. I was able to quickly meet up with one of the hunters from before. He was probably mid-30s, so he had probably been doing this much longer than I had. Luckily, we were able to catch sight of the stolen vehicle just before it left town. Despite knowing they had been slowed down, it seemed too easy. The car began taking back roads, and eventually pulled into an old cabin. Despite us being the only car behind it most of the time, it didn't seem to show any unusual behavior, as to suggest that it knew we were following them. The other hunter pulled over a short distance from the cabin, and he began to ready himself. I pulled out my phone. This was obviously a trap. I thought that maybe I could call backup. But the other hunter stopped me.
Listen, kid, I've been doing this a long time. I know this is probably a trap, but do you really think they're going to send anyone to help us? We're on our own, and you can either help me, or sit here and wait. I'm going in.
Well then, after you, I suppose, I replied coldly. I knew he was probably right, though. The government didn't care much about us. They would have probably just scolded me and asked what I was waiting for. So I began to gear up as well. Death might be favorable compared to whatever Dahlia wanted to do with me. The other hunter and I exited the vehicle and made our way as sneakily as possible in daylight. Once we made it to the door, the hunter gave me a countdown of 3 before throwing some of the grenades through the front window. It exploded into gas, quickly filling the home. I couldn't help but wonder why I had never gotten access to these grenades before. After the grenade had mostly dispersed, we covered our noses with our shirts and went inside. We instantly found one of the experiments unconscious on the floor. If I remember correctly, her name was Trauma, but by touching someone, she could force them to see their worst nightmares. I guess, since waterboarding is too inhumane, she must be the solution. The other hunter began to make his way over to her and began to restrain her, while I watched his back. He was almost done when everything went black. When I came to, I saw the other hunter was tied to a chair in front of me. He was still unconscious. I then looked down to see that I was in the same situation. I was firmly tied down to a chair. "Ah, you're finally awake," a male voice to my side said. I turned to look. It was the man from before, the one that walked through the wall. He was also sitting in a chair, but he wasn't tied up. I doubt any sort of bindings could hold him anyway. On his lap sat a doll. The doll had a hood pulled up just enough to cover its eyes. The man began to speak again. "It's actually a bit funny. Last time we met, I gave you someone tied up in a chair, and now you yourself are tied up." "What do you want?" I replied, not in the mood for any games. Not that I had much choice. I told you. Dahlia here is coming to pick you up, but instead, you came to see her yourself. How sweet of you, the man said. Did you really miss me that much? Dahlia finally spoke up. Can you just kill me already? Or do whatever you're going to do with me? I responded. I told you, I let the bad ones live, and you've been quite bad recently. Killing that poor man, Jack. It was a bit fast, but I'm sure you still enjoyed it. Dahlia said, mocking me. I just did what I was told. He knew what he signed up for. Yes, he did. The rest of us are not so fortunate. All our lives were turned into games by the government. The only difference between us is that you had a choice. The rest of the experiments and myself never had the luxury of knowing what we were getting into. So, what? You want to overthrow the government? Expose them? Something? A question. Dahlia began to laugh. Heavens no. They're far too powerful for that. And there are too few of us to even think about challenging them. I simply don't care enough about something like that. No, I simply wanted you. What? What do you want from me? I may have done terrible things, but I'm still nothing like you, I replied. Maybe not yet, but you will be. Soon enough. After she said this, 2 new people entered the room. They were both wearing lab coats. One held a syringe, and once he reached me, he plunged it into my arm, releasing the fluids. Once again, the world went black. I awoke again to find myself looking at 2 bodies. One was the other hunter. The other was mine. Both had a bullet hole in the head. How was that possible? Am I dead? Then how am I still seeing this? I quickly looked down at myself, fearing the worst. I wasn't trapped in a doll. I still appeared to be human. I touched my face and the rest of my body. I still felt solid. And I was still capable of picking things up. But why was my body seemingly dead on the floor? It's incredible, isn't it? It looks exactly like you, even down to the fingerprints. One of the experiment's abilities. The other one isn't a replica, though. He's quite dead. And done in with your gun, by the way. This came from the voice of the ghost-like man from before. What did you do to me? I asked. I knew they had to have done something to me. The man simply shrugged. Nothing. Seems as if your body rejected the serum they had planned for you. Rejected? Well, at least that was one thing to be happy about. Although I was still stuck in a room with one of my captors, as well as a dead body, and the replica of my own dead body. What now then? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I'd get a direct answer. Since the serum didn't work, Dahlia has one last plan for you. As he said this, the door once more opened. Dahlia was brought back into the room by trauma, this time with no hood. I was no longer tied up, but I knew there was no way for me to escape yet, so I stood still as Trauma approached me with Dahlia in hand. Once Trauma stood directly in front of me, I crouched down and I looked directly into Dahlia's eyes. I wouldn't fight fate. What I saw in those eyes was pure evil. I saw countless wars, murders, deaths, suicides. It seemed to be endless tragedy. I didn't lose control of myself, though. Instead, I quickly reached for the lighter that had been hiding in my shoe ever since I knew Dahlia had escaped. I flicked it almost instantly and held it to Dahlia's dress. She went up in a blaze. There was no stopping the fire. Trauma and the strange man desperately tried to stop it, but it was as if Dahlia had been soaked in gasoline. I took a second to smile before sprinting out the door. I saw several people on my way out of the house, but none of them seemed concerned with me. They were all trying to get to the room with Dahlia. I knew the whole cabin would be alight soon, so I needed to get out. Once I made it outside, I quickly ran to where the hunter's car had been parked. It was surprisingly still there. They hadn't moved it. Yet. But he still had the keys, so I smashed the window, hotwired the car as quickly as possible, and sped off. By the time I drove by, the fire in the cabin was massive. I almost hoped that all those inside would die, but they had all been under Dahlia's control. It's possible there was some good people among them. let the thought die instead, as I continued to move forward. I've been hiding out ever since that day. I know writing this only puts me in more danger, but this story needed to be put out there. It's almost guaranteed that the government will read this, and perhaps they'll send someone after me. I don't care anymore. I won't be a puppet to anyone, not the government, not a psychotic doll. I'm officially done hunting down the government's mistakes. So, what are we doing here? We're, appreciating art. How do you appreciate art? I think you just kind of stand there and look at it? That's it? Yeah, pretty much. Danny, we're staring at a 9-foot painting of a triangle. No offense, but even your hipster girlfriend knew this was bullshit, which is why she crapped out of going and you dragged me along. I blew air at my bangs from the bottom of my mouth. Alright, I said. Fuck it, let's go get drunk. Jason grinned, and we started walking towards the exit. Oh, that's more like it. You know that beard? It makes you look like a total douchebag. I think it looks manly. And Karen likes it. Manly. Danny, you look like the kind of guy who owns a special little comb for picking semen out of his beard. How long did it take you to come up with that one? About as long as it took you to... Well, hold on. Look at this one. Jason had stopped in front of a small painting of a face. Shit, yeah. The painting was of the bust of a woman, and looked like something out of the Renaissance. It was strangely out of place in the modernist gallery around us. Look at her eyes, Danny. Like, holy shit, I'm doing it. I'm appreciating art. The woman's eyes were sky blue, and they bore a sort of dreamy expression, which only seemed to enhance the strangeness of her beauty. Gives me the creeps, I said. Looks like she's naked? Do you think they got a painting of the rest of her? Seriously, it's creeping me out. Let's go. But as we turned around to go, we were approached by a woman with wire-rimmed glasses, and her hair pulled back so tight that her forehead was reflecting the gallery lights. Do you like this one? She asked. Yeah, my friend likes it. Jason was too busy ogling the painting to respond. Who painted it? I asked. An unknown Renaissance artist. It was donated to the gallery, and we displayed it here to demonstrate the contrast between modern and traditional forms of art. Is it for sale? Jason asked. You seem really taken with it. The gallery owner smiled. Go on, take it. Maybe it can inspire a love of art in you. Wait, are you serious? I asked. Jason shrugged and lifted the painting off the wall. Come on, sexy. You're coming with me. I can't believe you brought a painting to a bar. It's called peacocking, Danny. Whatting? It's when you bring something flashy to a bar and attract the attention of women. Sounds like a good idea. You want the girls to think you're some kind of psycho, right? Shit, I mean, that could work. Maybe I could hook up with one of those girls that writes letters to serial killers in prison. Besides, I wanted to look at it some more. I've always had a thing for green eyes. Are you drunk already? She's got blue eyes, dipshit. Dude, get your vision checked. This must be why you're such a shitty driver. You think all the traffic lights are blue? I was about to tell Jason what a dumbass he was when a girl walked up to us and interrupted. Cool painting, she said. It's mine. Jason puffed out his chest, perhaps taking the word peacocking a little too literally. I really like the expression in her eyes, the girl went on. She's so vulnerable. It's like she's really bearing her soul. Yeah, Jason eagerly agreed, but there's something more, like a fierceness. It's beautiful. The girl looked at the painting quizzically. I don't see it, she said. Jason and the girl went on talking while I drained my whiskey and started texting Karen that Jason had met a girl and was ignoring me again. He was always like this around pretty girls. He said he fell in love at least twice a day. Eventually, they went off to her apartment, and I went home to the dorm. I woke up on the couch the next morning with a splitting headache. Jason must have gotten home last night sometime after I passed out because his coat was on the rack. As I became more aware of my surroundings, I noticed a powerful burning smell. I jumped up and saw smoke billowing out of the oven. Jason, you fucking idiot, I grumbled. This wasn't the first time he'd stuck a pizza in the oven and then passed out before it was done. I switched off the oven and went to pound on Jason's door. Hey, wake up, numbskull! You nearly burned us alive again last night. No answer. Oh, God, what a lazy fucker. I turned the knob and saw that he was still in bed, but obviously awake. Hey, idiot, I said. Get up and clean the... But the words died in my throat. As I got closer, I saw the dark black pool of blood that had spilled out of his mouth. His eyes were wide open and still. Shit. I ran over and I shook him, but he was already ice cold. When the ambulance got there, they took him away in a bag. They asked me if I knew what had happened, but I couldn't answer. I just kept going over the same thing in my mind. Jason had brown eyes. Jason had brown eyes. I was sure of it. But when I found him, lying there in a pool of his own blood, his eyes had been green. The next week was a blur for me. I numbly floated through the days. People's consolations and pitying looks were just mundane platitudes that couldn't reach me. University held a memorial service for Jason. They printed out a big version of the picture of him for his student ID and placed it next to the arts building so people could come and pay their respects. I went the long way around the building to avoid seeing it. I didn't want to be reminded of what had happened, but I couldn't hide from it forever. After class on Friday, there was an urgent knock on my door, and when I opened it up, Karen was standing there looking upset. I tried calling you, she said. Are you okay? I shrugged. Surviving, I guess. Have you... Karen seemed nervous about something. Have you been to the arts building? Not recently. Why? I don't want to upset you, but I figured it'd best come from me. What are you talking about? And Karen pulled up a picture on her phone and handed it to me. What the fuck? It was Jason's picture by the art building, but someone had gouged out the eyes and spray painted a big red X over his face. Who the fuck would do this? I asked. I don't know. The university police are looking into it. I saw red. A thought had been nagging at the back of my mind for days now. I grabbed my keys off the hook, and I marched out to the parking lot. Where are you going? I heard Karen calling after me. I'm going back to that fucking art gallery. I'm not sure what I expected. An answer, I guess? Some kind of closure? But I definitely didn't expect to find what I did. Hanging right there in the very same spot was the painting of the blue-eyed woman. I couldn't believe my eyes. I just stood there staring at it. You like this one? I heard a voice from behind me and I turned to see the gallery owner. Oh, she said. You're back. Where did you get this? I sputtered out. The gallery owner stroked the painting's cheek. She always seems to find her way back. I think she misses her spot on the wall. I felt something in me break. My emotional numbness was replaced by a flood of anger. I grabbed the woman's collar and yanked her towards me. I know it was you, I said, shaking her. I know what you did! You gonna hurt me? She asked. Her eyes moved to the painting and I followed them. The painting's eyes were now a brilliant shade of green. I gasped when I let go of her collar and watched as the eyes slowly changed back to blue. The gallery owner straightened her shirt. I don't decide who she goes home with, she said softly. She does. I started to back away slowly. The gallery owner watched me. I could have sworn the painting was watching me too as I turned around. I ran. When I got home, Karen was waiting for me. Worry written all over her face. Annie, what's going on? I don't know, I said breathlessly, but I know who killed Jason. You do? It was the gallery owner, I said. The place we went to last week. Gallery owner? Why would the gallery owner kill Jason? Because she's crazy? She's some kind of witch, Karen. Karen frowned. Are you feeling okay? Jason died in bed, Danny. Why do you think he was murdered? You didn't see it. The painting. I trailed off. Even I could hear how crazy the words sounded as they came out of my mouth. I knew what I'd say, but I knew no one else would believe me. Nothing, I said. Sorry, I'm a little upset. Never mind. Let's just relax for a while. Wanna watch a movie? I agreed more for Karen's sake than my own. After all, I was sure I'd frightened her. We set up the movie and Karen went off to the bathroom like she always did at the start of movies. While she was inside, I saw a text message from her friend Brittany pop up on her phone. Karen didn't mind when I read her messages, so I grabbed the phone and I swiped it up. All the messages said was, "Have you told him about Jason yet?" I heard the toilet flush and faucets go on, and then Karen walked back and plopped down next to me. "What's this?" I held the phone up to her face. "It's nothing, Danny. Why don't we talk about it when you're feeling better?" "No, something's going on. I want to know what the fuck it is." Karen sighed. "All right," she said. After they put Jason's picture up, there were some rumors that started going around. Rumors? What rumors? Some girls said things about Jason, assaulting them, and then more girls started to come forward. The police looked into it, Danny. They're saying what? They're saying his DNA ties back to open rape cases a couple of years back. What? I'm sorry, Danny. I know you were his friend. It felt like the air had been rushed out of the room. There was no way that could be true. Jason had always been a bit of a chauvinist, but he wasn't a rapist, was he? A few weeks later, the dust had settled, and the truth had come out about Jason. Felt like he had died a second time. All those good memories of him were now replaced by some sick feeling I couldn't even begin to untangle. 17 women. And those were just the ones who'd come forward. School took down the picture and got rid of the flowers people had left. Some people were saying they were glad he was dead. Those are the same people that gave me dirty looks when I passed by them in the hallways. I mean, whatever. Didn't matter. I didn't know what had really happened with the painting. But I decided to just let sleeping dogs lie. Thinking about it hurt anyway. I eventually went back to the gallery owner and apologized for my outburst. She smiled. She told me that I had a good heart. As I was leaving, I could hear the faint sounds of her talking with someone. "You seem to really like it," she said. "Why don't you take it home with you?"
My name is Cynthia. I started smoking Newport cigarettes when I was 9 years old. I'm currently 31. I am recently divorced and unable to have children, but I had hoped to adopt a little one. Hell, even a teenager, I don't really care. I just wanted someone to keep me company to end the every night routine of eating a pint of ice cream, smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, and watching reruns of sitcoms from the 80s. Hell, if I didn't have to work 4 days a week, I'd never leave my couch. I'm overweight, balding in my early 30s, and looking for something more productive to do with my life. I had been watching the Times Square New Year's Eve event alone in my shitty apartment. Some celebrity had been asking random people in the crowd about their New Year's resolutions. Some wanted a new car, some wanted a better job, some had their priorities fucked up. It was just the usual New Year's garbage I'd been dealing with my whole life. I had always meant to have a list of at least 3 resolutions, but either never thought of anything or never followed through. It was strange, the commercial I saw. It had bright colors and a woman dancing with some cute guy in some sort of studio. The music was louder than the normal television volume, and it immediately grabbed my attention, startling me because of the sudden noise. A woman's voice began speaking over the upbeat music. "New year, new you. Tired of wasting your time, your money, and your health on that nasty cigarette habit? Ask your doctor if Fuma Fur is right for you." Fuma Fur? Was this some kind of new method to giving up smoking? I put out my cigarette in the ashtray on the end of the table and perked up a bit. Fuma Fur is one simple pill a day for 30 days. It must be prescribed by your doctor. Fuma Fur may help you lose weight, so ask your doctor if Fuma Fur is right for you. It's a win-win. Not only could I finally kick the cigarettes to the curb, but I could potentially lose weight. There was this new diet plan my coworker Ashley had been bragging about. Normally, I don't feed into that sort of hype, but I watched her lose so much weight in only a month that I had asked her for the brochure. I was sure it was still in my purse. Side effects may include abnormal sleep, loss of appetite, sore throat, headache, nausea, skin rash, mild constipation, or new or worsening mood changes. Contact your doctor immediately if you experience... I wasn't listening anymore. I put my ice cream down, opened my laptop, and logged into my doctor's patient portal. I loved this new portal thing because I could log in, check when he's available, and see when appointments have been canceled. It's much easier to get an appointment, and I can't even let him know what the appointment is for. A few years ago, it took 2 weeks to get an appointment. This system made sure I could easily get in whenever I needed to. I had decided on my 3 resolutions. I got an appointment with my doctor to discuss weight loss, quitting smoking, and possibly getting my hair to grow back. In a few minutes, one of the 24-hour answering service people confirmed my appointment for January 2nd at 9 a.m. and let me know that my physician always recommends this over-the-counter cream unless I have a skin condition. She also wrote that if I'm wary of it, wait to ask the doctor. I looked up the stuff and saw amazing results, so I ordered a 6-month supply and had it delivered on the same day as my appointment. I decided that once that ball dropped, I wasn't going to bed. I was going to actually clean my apartment. I had just gotten one of those new, fancy coffee makers with those little pods. I made myself a cup and sipped it as the New Year was celebrated in New York City. I spent the entirety of New Year's Day cleaning my apartment from top to bottom. New year, new me, right? I basically had to go through everything I owned because I had become quite the pack rat, leaving me with limited space. After filling 14 large black garbage bags with things I didn't want to bring into the new year with me, I carried them 3 or 4 at a time to the dumpster in the back of my apartment building. Coffee after coffee, and the entire place was spotless. I even finally got around to unpacking 2 boxes from when I had moved in years ago. I remembered I used to wear significantly smaller clothes, and instead of throwing them all away, I organized my closet. The fat clothes on the left, the new year, new me clothes on the right. It was 5 in the evening, and I was exhausted. Satisfied with my new, clean apartment, I went to bed early, knowing that I would need to be well rested for my appointment the following morning. The doctor seemed to be in a rush. He told me that the brand of hair cream I was using was great and gave me 2 new prescriptions. The first was an appetite suppressant, and the second was my new, exciting wonder drug. I went to the pharmacy and got them both filled immediately. Then I went to the grocery store and actually bought healthy food to cook and not something I would throw in the microwave for 2.5 minutes. I made myself a nice dinner for the first time since I was in my early 20s. I took both the pills and felt fine. All those side effect warnings were bullshit, as usual. I decided a reasonable new bedtime would be 10. I tucked myself in and found it difficult to fall asleep. I thought about maybe getting a feline companion to keep me company. I dropped the idea when I realized I'm compulsive and would immediately become the crazy cat lady. Eventually, I think I fell asleep, but it wasn't like anything I remember. I think it was a dream, but I can't be sure. I was lying on my back, seeing the room around me shrouded in the darkness of the night. I thought I was awake and struggled trying to move. My limbs felt too heavy to even twitch, and I got very nervous. I could have sworn I saw moving shadows out of the corner of my eye. I'm not sure when it happened, but I jolted awake, soaked with sweat and gasping loudly. It was just a dream, I thought, trying to calm myself down. I remembered reading some article online about sleep paralysis. I wondered if that was what I had experienced. I checked the clock to see it was about 20 minutes before my alarm went off. I got dressed up in my favorite red blouse with the buttons and put on a skirt for the first time in as long as I could remember. I was surprised it fit. I even went as far as to put on a pair of uncomfortable heels. But I would just be at my desk. I spent extra time on my hair and makeup, feeling proud of how I looked. New year, new me. Everyone at the office complimented my appearance. Cindy from accounting said I looked like a brand new woman. I was beaming with pride, and on my lunch break, I went outside to smoke, but decided against it. I threw my pack of cigarettes away and went to the little deli across the street to get myself a salad. I went to the break room instead of eating at my desk and got so many kind words and compliments. I bragged about my new attitude and lifestyle choices and received nothing but support. Fast forward a week and a half. I lost 12 pounds, dropped a dress size, and noticed my legs appearing thinner. I was ecstatic. It didn't come without hard work, and it didn't come without side effects. I found myself vomiting every morning, and it had become a ritual. I would only eat 2 small meals a day and a smoothie I would make after work. I didn't notice the hair growth cream working, and I knew it was supposed to take a month, but I didn't want to wait. Everything else about me looked better. I went and got my nails done, and they looked just as fancy as the younger girls in the office. I had saved a large sum of money for a new car, but decided the car could wait. I basically paid $3,000 to get hair put in and then have some kind of electricity thing scheduled once a week for 3 weeks. I was assured that if my hair was not growing normally within those 3 weeks, I would receive a full refund. I had only been to 1 grueling, painful session, but my head definitely felt different. The fake hair looked so real. I was told it would fall out when real hair grew in to replace it. So it sounds like everything was going great, right? There were problems. Every night I could only sleep a few hours. The night terrors and sleep paralysis progressively got worse, leading me to upgrade from coffee to espresso and to buy Adderall from a coworker. I'm not gonna lie, I was hyper all the time and full of energy. But my body ached, and I knew I needed more sleep. I brushed it off and decided that if it got worse, I would go back to the doctor. It was day 13 of the Fuma Fur that something very strange happened. I was in a meeting with my coworkers giving a presentation. Everyone in the room loved the advertising idea, and I was praised. I'm always a very bubbly person, always smiling to the point that it takes 20 minutes to cover my laugh lines with makeup in the morning. Then Cindy spoke up. "I like the presentation," she said. "Fiscally, however, this isn't going to work." Normally, I would have smiled and asked her to explain and let me know what we could change. Disagreements happen all the time, but I'm not one to ever really get emotional. I always chuckle, apologize if I've wronged someone, and generally be kind to others just like my mother taught me. No one was ever mean to me, and if they were, I would reply so kindly that they would always be nice after that. My smile drooped into a frown I didn't know I was capable of. "What do you mean?" I said, suddenly feeling like I was holding back tears. "It's a minor adjustment," she clarified. "We may want to start with only 5,000 or 6,000 brochures, test the waters, and—" "No!" I gasped, feeling a tear slide down my cheek. My behavior was not my own, and I was not in control. I literally stomped my feet twice like a child throwing a temper tantrum. "No, no, no! Stop it!" Ashley and Cindy exchanged confused expressions. Then Ashley got up and approached me nervously. "Cynthia, are you all right?" she gasped. "You're not yourself. What's going on?" "Nobody ever appreciates me," I said, raising my voice and shaking my head repeatedly. I compulsively began to slap myself repeatedly in the face. Everyone in the room gasped, and Ashley made a move to grab my wrists. "Oh my gosh," she said, wrapping me in a hug. "Honey, no, we love you. It isn't about you. You're great, perfect even. Please, I think you're having some kind of problem and we should get you checked out." This isn't okay. I'm worried. We're all worried. I suddenly felt humiliated. I covered my face and sobbed loudly, running out of the room and tripping over my high heels. I fell to the floor and curled into a ball, admitting defeat and screaming loudly. Before I knew it, I was rushed into an ambulance and brought to the local hospital. After evaluation and being given a sedative, I felt like my old self again. I felt humiliated and ridiculous for what had happened, but Ashley stood by my side and insisted I didn't do anything wrong and nobody was judging me. The doctor said I had a nervous breakdown, probably due to all the major life changes I was dealing with. Ashley held my hand and smiled at me. "See? You're all right and I'm so proud of you," Ashley said reassuringly. The doctor sent me home with a month's worth of sedatives to take when I get nervous. I was told to get refills from my doctor. They weighed me once I calmed down and I couldn't believe it. That day alone, I was down 3 pounds. Ashley decided to drive me home that night, promising to pick me up for work the next morning so I could just take my car home the next day. She stayed with me, we cooked dinner together, and I told her about my 2 sides of my closet. She insisted that my clothes were starting to look way too big on me and basically rushed me into the bedroom to try on my small clothes. I fit into about half of the outfits and we decided to pop open a bottle of this wine I'd gotten for Christmas. I hesitated because I remembered the package on the Fuma Fur saying something about not drinking, but Ashley promised it would be fine. "You're home," she said with a laugh, pouring 2 completely filled wine glasses and handing me one. "Hell, if you lend me that blue dress, I'll stay the night to keep an eye on you. No need to pick you up in the morning, we'll just go together." "You'd really want to?" I asked. No one ever wanted to keep me company. Duh," Ashley said. "Cynthia, you're really a great friend. I hope we can be best friends. You're like the big sister I never got to have." Ashley and I had a wild night together. We stayed up way too late and eventually passed out in the living room with Madonna songs playing on repeat. This was when the night terrors changed dramatically. I wasn't just seeing shadows anymore. They weren't shadows at all. The large window behind the sofa I slept on had black shadow hands reaching out and trying to grab me. The heating system went on automatically with a soft rumble. I was frozen and paralyzed in a dreamlike state once again, unable to move my limbs. I became paranoid. Or at least, I think I was being paranoid. I thought the heating system was talking about hurting me, and when the ice maker in the freezer made that annoying sound it always makes in my mind, it was like the refrigerator was talking to the heating system about raping me and Ashley. I woke up screaming. I startled Ashley awake and she began forcing me to swallow sedatives while I screamed and cried about the appliances trying to rape us. After about an hour, I calmed down and felt fine again. This had really scared the shit out of Ashley, though. Ashley gave me a phone number for her psychiatrist. She confided in me that she took antidepressants and said I needed to call her. Ashley and I both took the day off work and she drove me to the appointment. It was considered urgent enough to get me right in. Ashley waited in the car and took a nap, I think. I talked to the psychiatrist and told her about the sedatives. I felt like I was hiding the fact that I was taking diet supplements and Fuma Fur. I don't know why, but I felt ashamed of who I had once been, and I was about halfway through my month-long plan. A couple of incidents were no reason to spoil it. Plus, I couldn't open the can of worms of me buying Adderall. She seemed to think it was stress, prescribed me a stronger sedative, and even gave me a sleep medication. She warned me that it could be very addictive, and that she would only write it for a month to regulate my sleep schedule. Ashley took me to my car, we hugged, and agreed to do brunch the next day. I filled my new prescriptions and realized I spent an awful lot of time in pharmacies these days. I had a lot of time to kill, so I walked down Main Street and looked at all the stores. I wasn't saving for a car anymore, and I thought treating myself would help brighten up the bad week I was having. I bought a lot of new clothes, and for some reason when I tried some of them on, they were too big. I wasn't sure how, but the size I had tried on the night before was too loose, and the woman suggested a size 2. I hadn't been size 2 since college. I bounced up and down happily and brought a dozen bags to my car, ignoring the fact that I had just blown over $500. I decided, new year, new me. I even went to this place down the street Cindy had gotten her adjustments made. I had wrinkles, and with my hair sorted out, I wondered if I could get injections like her. Her face looked so great. They tried to warn me that insurance didn't cover it, it was quite expensive, and there were a lot of risks, blah blah blah. I realized if I played my cards right, I could get this done. I paid more than I bargained for. I was told to lie down and put a cold bag of peas on my face for the 2 hours. I rushed home, didn't bother to put my new clothes away, and listened to music while I waited. The concept of time just didn't make sense to me anymore. What felt like 1 minute had actually been an hour and a half. I just didn't understand time anymore, and I wondered what the drugs could possibly be doing to my brain. I was so close to being the perfect woman. And I even heard that one of the corporate attorneys was planning to ask me to dinner. My face felt numb, and apparently it would stay that way for as long as 2 weeks. I looked in the mirror and was happy enough with the results. New year, new me. Less time putting on makeup in the morning because those lines were gone, baby! I decided to stop the appetite suppressant that night. I figured if I kept eating healthy, I could maintain my new weight. I did, however, take the new sleeping medication and the Fuma Fur. It was alright at first. I had dreams that were strange, but no paralysis. I woke up in the middle of the night, groggy and confused. I think I went to the kitchen and got seltzer water. Next thing I know, I'm back in bed, frozen in my body. This time, things were so much worse. I heard voices telling me to do horrible things, telling me that everyone hated me and that hands were touching me and I could feel them grabbing and pulling my skin off my bones. I shot awake 10 minutes before my alarm and gripped my head. I felt hungover and confused. I immediately took a shit ton of Adderall and drank espresso to try and break me out of this fog I was in. By the time I finished my shower, I was back to normal. Well, sort of. The voices were still there, even though I wasn't dreaming. I heard an occasional whisper that sounded like my name, and I was beginning to think the curling iron was the one doing the talking. I thought about it as I applied makeup to my aching face gently and realized it didn't make sense. The curling iron had to take orders from someone, and I knew it was the refrigerator. Every now and again during my morning routine, I would argue with the voices. Eventually, I realized I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me. That's because they were using remote-controlled alien technology from another universe to control the appliances and get them to speak English to me, but the appliances themselves couldn't understand anything I said. It was a one-sided conversation, basically. Even if the aliens heard me through the microphones they put in my apartment, they wouldn't answer. Otherwise, the CIA would come and I would know too much. The people on that morning news show could hear the voices too, and I chuckled every time one of them stopped talking to listen to the voices. It was like they would forget what they were going to say because they were being interrupted. I realized I was given a gift, and they were only threatening to rape me and make me kill all those microbes to gain control over me. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction, and eventually I learned to tune out the voices. I arrived at work right on time and realized that they had bugged the office, too. The surround sound was playing jazz music and whispering I couldn't understand, and the lights seemed to be too bright. I realized not everyone in the office was smart enough to know what was going on, so I kept my information to myself. I didn't want the CIA to come and get me. Work was a blur, Countless pills were taken every time the voices got to be too much to handle. I even started seeing the shadows and the hands. But the pills made it easier because they kept a smile on my face. No one noticed that I knew the secrets. I got home late and took my Fuma Fur and my sleeping medication. While I waited for the sleep medication to work, I checked my email and turned on some music to drown out the voices. I had over a dozen emails from my doctor's office telling me to call them immediately because there's been an emergency. I picked up my cell phone, which was still on silent from the day at work, and I had 3 missed calls. I couldn't focus on the doctor's words in the voicemails, but I recognized it was his voice and not a secretary. He said something about psychiatric medical records coming in and something about the Fuma Fur. I couldn't understand his garbled speech, so I figured he was reminding me to take it and saying it was good that I went to see a psychiatrist. That had to be the point. Maybe he was praising me. I couldn't focus on the phone over the sound of the voices, and I had to hurry to type out an email to his office thanking them for the Fuma Fur and letting them know I haven't smoked a single cigarette since I began my treatment. I knew I had to follow through the entire 30 days, though, just like the box said. I didn't want to risk getting back into that nasty habit. I had to stop typing mid-sentence and send the email as it was. It was getting difficult to read what I wrote and realize that the message didn't say anything I wanted it to. It was so riddled with typos and weird phrases that I didn't remember what I meant to type. I figured they would understand it because they're doctors and all that, so I sent it as it was. Within minutes, I fell asleep right there on the couch. I was once again frozen, and all the voices were telling me a message. I tried my best to make it out and twitch my fingers, but everything was so confusing. The shadows were no longer just hands and vague figures. I saw shadow men I recognized as the alien leadership in charge. They were telling me the CIA was planning to take me to a place far away so I couldn't tell the world about the real alien government. I began hearing a banging sound coming from the kitchen. It sounded like knocking, and I vaguely heard 2 men screaming for me to open the door. I realized it was the CIA and tried desperately to wake up, but I couldn't budge an inch no matter how hard I tried. I heard a crash, and then I remember hearing voices, but they sounded human. The shadows promised to hide me, and blackness consumed me. I woke up this morning in a hospital bed with my arms strapped down and a needle in my arm. I realized I was being held hostage by the CIA. The voices were making me bite my tongue until it bled, and a loud beeping sound came from the right side of the room. A few people in hospital scrubs ran into the room and began checking my mouth. It was bleeding a lot, and they put some kind of alien device in my mouth like a gag so I couldn't close my teeth. I tried to talk to them, but I slurred in a way I had never heard myself speak before, and the hard plastic piece was stopping me from closing my mouth. A man in a white coat rushed to my side and began yelling at the nurses. "Give me the morphine, quickly, quickly," he said, securing gloves on his hands and applying some kind of gauze to the side of my mouth. Everything just felt wet, and then everything felt numb. I could still hear the voices and see the shadows, but it was as if none of it made any sense to me. They were trying to stop me from communicating. My eyes darted around the room very quickly. My body was once again impossible to move. But I was awake, and I knew it. I saw a nurse accept something from the doctor with his hands in my mouth, and I think they thought I was asleep. I saw what appeared to be my tongue being put into one of those little plastic cups they use for urine samples. Once the doctor finished whatever he was doing, my eyes were closed, but I could hear him more clearly over the jumble of voices. "Psychosis, clear case," he said to someone in the room. "Possibly much worse, but we'll need to see the MRI results. I need you to contact her next of kin and let them know she is being committed legally, and if they want to fight it in court, so be it." None of the words seemed to make sense to me. Everything was so clear, and yet it sounded like I was underwater. I heard his voice echo, and then I heard a very familiar voice. I think it might have been my doctor's voice, but I can't be sure. "Shit, shit," I heard him say. I had never heard him swear before. I couldn't get in contact with Cynthia to let her know about the Fuma Fur recall. She sent this bizarre email to my staff and I called her an ambulance. They kicked in her door, and thank God they did. He sounded quite upset. The doctor who had taken my tongue away let out a strange, almost chuckle. These things happen to the best of us. Permanent brain damage is likely, but we won't know for sure until the results come in. I feel terrible about this, my doctor said. I had no idea. No one did. The man interrupted. Not our problem. Let the pharmaceutical company get the shit suit out of him by this girl's family. I think her parents are coming from upstate to voluntarily give us the go-ahead. So we'll save some time on the whole legal bullshit. Her mother is my friend, the man sighed. What the fuck am I gonna tell her? The strange man laughed quietly. I don't get paid enough to give you life advice. The female laughed and sounded like she was talking to the strange doctor. It sounded like they were leaving, because even though they sounded far away before, they sounded even further in the distance, and in moments, I couldn't hear them at all. I just heard some weird gargling noise that left me feeling anxious and a bit confused. I don't know if you can hear me, my doctor said. Cynthia, I'm so sorry. Of course you can't hear me. Get a hold of yourself, Jack. Right, okay. I'm talking to a vegetable. I need a drink.
Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and once again, it's the end of tonight's video, so I want to tell you all thank you for listening or watching however you hear my voice. Whether it be on YouTube or on the podcast, thank you so much for being here with me. There's going to be a new story every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday night right here on YouTube, or if you're not watching on YouTube, that means the podcast gets updated on SoundCloud, Apple, Google Play, and now the podcast is on Spotify. So if it's easier for you guys to listen there than it is to listen on YouTube, then hey, not such a bad deal, right? As always, any support you guys give towards MrCreepyPasta Storytime really does help me out. I can actually keep the lights on in the house, and I can get nice little cat treats for Hercules. Okay, sorry for taking up so much of your time. Thank you guys for listening once again, and sweet dreams.